Hi, YouTube. So, do you want to explain to everyone what your role has been in this game?
Right, so my name is Robert Butkiewicz, and I was a level designer on the Thaumaturge project, and now I'm here to talk with you about the game on this stream right here.
So, personally, I was told, and
Yep.
I have progressed all the way through the prologue, where we get to meet Rasputin, and he actually helps cure our character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
he does help figure that out, that's true. Yeah,
I
go
believe
on.
the character in the background that is there was the one I also kind of like saved a village from being attacked by this thing.
Yeah, so without going into too much detail, the thing in the background is Bukavac. He is a salutor that some players may already be familiar with. And I guess you put it well that you did save the village from him. Yes, his influence was a major issue for everybody in town. So good on you.
So, so before we click continue to begin in Act 1, I figure I could ask real quick. This Butkiewicz, I'm assuming, is based on some sort of like real life lore, maybe from the region you live in?
Well, not necessarily Poland, but it is a Slavic demon. Well, demon.
Ah.
Yeah, we could call it a demon, I guess. It's specifically from the Balkans and a very specific area near Serbia, like one or two valleys, if I remember correctly. I can't give you the name right now, unfortunately.
Oh, that's
So it's a
okay.
very localized demon. Yeah.
Cool. So let's actually dive in. And I mean, if any of you in the chat, do you see the Twitch chat at the moment too, by the way?
Yeah, yeah, I do.
In that case, if you see any questions you want to answer, you can just answer directly and I'll just interrupt what I'm saying.
All right, sure.
Also, as part of this, I suppose I can also mention that you all were very kind to actually contribute to a cancer research charity called Rak'N'Roll.
Yep, that's true. We donated $1,000 to the charity today.
Big applause to that, and thank you so much for wanting to do that, because I was already like honored and excited enough when because we've been talking about your game in the community for a while, and when I saw the email, I was like, "Yo, this is awesome!" So that you wanted to contribute so much to charity has actually done a super amazing thing in our stream. We just passed $150,000 to cancer research thanks to you guys.
Yeah, I'm really happy that we managed to help you do that. I mean, it's a very noble goal. So I know what it's like to have close people close to you affected by the disease. So I'm all for it, absolutely, and so is everybody on board with us at the back at the company and at the 11-bit publisher, right?
That's super amazing, and thank you so much.
Regarding the charity itself, the Roll Foundation, maybe I could explain the name there. So
Yes,
there's a
please
little bit
do.
of wordplay going on. So the Polish word for cancer is rak. So, Roll. It's there's a certain pun there, and it's a charity that mainly focuses on helping uh, afflicted people get through cancer. It's not as much of, well, did also do research, but the way I was told
They
that
support a
they would
form of
like,
cancer
yeah,
treatment
it's a support
process.
of patients. Yes, exactly. It helps them, lead their lives on as normal, as try to be as unimpeded by the disease as possible, and basically that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's very beautiful, and I feel like sometimes it's so easy to get to like just spot the like we need to do the research, but then forget like there are people that are
People, yeah,
suffering, and to make
exactly.
their lives more comfortable and capable to get through while they're waiting for the cure, that is just as important. Sometimes people forget that part.
Yeah, well, I'm glad there are foundations like Roll that see this issue, right? And are there to
Indeed.
help the people. So, exactly.
So where I am currently in the game, by the way, I am in a place called Warsaw, and that is a real life place. And during
Absolutely.
during the time of the game, what time are we playing in the game? A specific year?
So the specific year is 1905. So just what, 9 short years before World War One breaks out, right?
Yeah.
So very not that far ago actually. Pretty modern. I mean, we already had electricity and everything, so not as widespread, but it was already there. Telephones and whatnot. So
Also, though, like it was already there. Like, it just was there. We just applied it.
yeah, we did do quite a bunch of research actually into what the specific technology available in Polish cities was at the time, and then you find out that in the year, I don't know, 1902 or 1903, there were 23 telephone numbers registered in the city. So that makes go okay. They had telephone back then. I pulled that number out of nowhere right now. I just like.
But even
there was a very
so,
small number of
cool.
telephone. Yeah.
Why such a crowd?
I wonder what they talked about back then.
Yeah, it would be mostly in places, like offices and maybe, say, very popular hotels might have a telephone, that kind of thing.
So Nikolai
By
Romanov,
offices, I mean, that's the Tsar.
And he was the leader of Russia at that time. And to my understanding, they had a part of Warsaw under their control back then.
Not only a part, they had the whole city under their control. Because Poland, the thing is, God, I don't want to mess up the year. I think it was 1794. I'll Google that real quick. Been sleeping on my history classes in terms of remembering the dates, right?
Honestly,
no, I was
dates
mistaken by what? Sorry?
You're not really in need of dates very often when it comes to history and life. Like
I was off by 1
in the
year.
street.
I was off by 1 year. It was 1795, not 94, when Poland was partitioned for the final time by its three neighbors, the Russian Empire, the Kingdom of Prussia, and the Austrian Empire, and that's when it, disappeared from the maps. So the largest chunk went to Russia, and that's where Warsaw happened to be as well.
I noticed in the prologue, Rasputin, as we met, he remarked on the fact that we were like talking as we were a wizard that came out of a place that doesn't exist on any map. So that would be a reference to that then.
Possibly, yeah. I guess I have to play to find out.
Yeah. And the first feeling I got when I was starting this up, I actually told people earlier, it's like, when you get into this, it actually feels like you're going on a journey like in The Witcher. Like, the first time we booted up Witcher 1 when that came out, it feels like you're going into a rich universe with a lot of, like, things you don't understand when you begin, and they unravel in front of you, and it's really exciting to see this thaumaturgy that we're using to communicate with beings that the average person cannot see, and to my understanding, be able to read emotion and like the history of objects too, to like see things that are blind to the naked eye.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed that. There was quite a lot of work put into both world building and developing this whole concept of thaumaturgy. And I'm glad that you would use such a powerful example to compare Thaumaturge to. I mean, The Witcher is, big a big game, big franchise with everybody knows it, right? So we're honored. Thank you so much.
Thank you for making a game that I want to compare to that. Like, it's not often you get to do such a comparison when you play games.
Will have any further right to exist.
And also,
I mean, what can we do? We put our sorry.
Go on. Caro is asking you a question there, by the way, in the chat if you want to read it.
Oh yeah, I'll scroll down. My bad.
Pardon me. Are you Polish?
Is more of the game inspired by Balkan folklore? To a certain degree, yes. Because the main Salutor that you have, Upir, he is, to the best of my knowledge, a pretty universal entity in terms of Slavic folklore. He appears in both Western Slavic folklore as well as Eastern and Southern Slavic folklore. So in that regard, definitely Upir would be something that may be present in Balkan folklore, I would say.
Yeah, I'm gonna answer that I am indeed a Polish person, see what it says.
Yes, I feel Polish.
I feel Polish.
My name's Victor.
Yeah, that's the thing. You get Victor, who is
This is
let's say, a
Russia
defined
here.
character, but there
Like
is
it or not.
a certain amount of wiggle room for you to make your Victor, you know, personal to you.
So,
My
Victor,
first
like you said,
decision as Governor General of Warsaw.
No, he isn't. I mean, a defined character as in not a character that you create from the ground up and design all of their traits and their appearance and everything, but you know, sort of the way, to use the earlier example, sort of the way like Geralt was, or like any other character coming in from any other piece of media being adapted into games. You know, they already exist before the player gets their hands on them, in that kind of way.
awesome. Yeah, I figured I'd ask because it wasn't certain what define meant, and I love them when you get like.
Please kneel
It's
and
like
tie my
once again
shoe.
like The Witcher, when you get a character that's predefined, you know what the type of character they are, but you still get to have that wiggle room of shaping them into something you feel more fits your like experience and gives you a more personal feel to the adventure. Also, we just got raided by a lovely person called Ferret Bomb, in case you wanna say hey to the raiders and explain who you are to them too. 66 more people just joined us.
All right, sure. So once again, hi everybody. My name is Robert Butkiewicz, and I am a level designer on the Thaumaturge game. And I'm here to talk to you today about the game and hopefully answer as many of your questions as I can, and you know, just have a fun time with you on this Friday evening.
Yes. Happy Friday, by the way.
Yeah.
Is there any specific tradition in Poland that's it like happens during weekends or something? Because I know different countries tend to sometimes have different ways to unwind during weekends and stuff.
It will all depend on the person, but a lot of people, you know, they go out on town and they just go crazy, go partying. You know, it all depends, like, on personal preference. I had a lot of friends who would do that, and then they grew out of it. Some of them still do that.
Makes sense.
It's really a personal thing.
What
There
type
isn't,
of
I would say,
food?
any sort of universal tradition. Yeah, go on.
What type of food would you eat when you go out in that case?
Currently, in the contemporary
That
day,
seems more like a job for the servants.
Well,
that would be, yeah.
Go
No,
ahead.
right.
Look down.
Answer. Sorry.
All right. So today, I would say one of the most popular street foods in Poland is kebab, and it came from Germany. In Germany, they would be called doner, I think. Basically, you know what I mean?
Yeah, doner
The
kebab.
military is just
Yeah,
looking for an
basically. And in
excuse to
Poland,
suppress
they
the
have
crowd.
the
And these workers
that
are
sort of
dreaming of thrashing a Russian
pyramid-shaped
gendarme.
bun went out of fashion pretty
Either
fast.
one
Now
of you
everything is
confesses to
wrapped up
disturbing
in a
the
pancake or a tortilla or something like that.
Yeah.
Or
We'll take
pita
you
bread.
away.
Yeah, that would be like, I
can't
think,
handle
still
all
the
of
most
us.
popular food. But
Can you get us out of
recently,
here?
like, if you're willing to spend some more, so before going to a party, you might want to go
I think I'm open to
eat at a
anything
ramen
these
joint
days.
or something like that. Ramen got really popular in Poland as well.
Find out
So
what can convince one of these bastards.
ramen
I've
is pretty
actually
good
never had
foundation.
real ramen.
It's
Or
really
I
good.
take
Like
on the
I
sole
had an
plate leader of
opportunity
the
once
proletariat.
when traveling
Interesting
to
strategy.
try, you know, ramen in Japan, and it's really pretty good. I loved it. And the chefs making it in Poland, I know a lot of places actually employ Japanese chefs.
Oh.
They really make it almost like pretty much the same thing. Like, I assume Japanese people would disagree, and of course, like, it's their right to do that. But I couldn't really tell that much of a difference between them, if I'm being honest. Like,
Honestly,
they do a really
sometimes-
good job here.
Yeah, sometimes it's like here in Sweden we have a lot of people that came from different countries. Like we've often during times of distress had a lot of people coming from war and stuff, and they miss the food in their home country, and then they go to like a Swedish joint and they're like, yeah, this is not at all. Like this is like an insult to my food, and they start their own establishment and actually make the food as it's meant to be. So authentic, actual food. So it sounds like you might have that too, and that's really cool.
It is, yeah. I like that thing a lot. Like, now you just reminded me. Recently, in the last 2, maybe 3 years, slightly before the war started, the invasion of Ukraine.
Yeah.
Ukrainian food has been getting popular in Poland. I've noticed in the city I live a bunch of Ukrainian
going
places
to take a
open up
look
as well, and they would be both like maybe a bakery, but or a restaurant, you know, stuff like that. And also Georgian places, like Georgian bakeries, got really popular. in Poland in the last couple of years. I love them. Like, I don't know if you've ever had Georgian, um, what, they call them hachapuri. It's like this kind of large flatbread, and then you can get all sorts of toppings stuffed inside of it or on top of it. Like you can get an egg one, or like spinach and cheese, potatoes, rice, any sort of meat that you want. You know,
I think
all
I've had
sorts of
something
stuff.
similar to it, but not in the like specific authentic deal there. And I was gonna ask something about the game here, but I forgot what it was. But because I got so distracted with food. But I suppose what I can ask is, for those that didn't get to see the prologue, since I did before the stream, when I right-click, I'm able to actually scan the environment, and then you get to see different things. And sometimes you get observations, and you can see traces, so we know that the trace is certain. We know that this came from Wanda. That's part of Thaumaturge. But we also have some other stuff. Do you want to explain what this is on the side here? I think it's heart and duty?
And deed.
Deed,
Indeed,
right.
yeah. These are dimensions, so we tried to, for the sake of gameplay, you know, boil down like a human personality into these gameplay elements. So we ended up with heart, deed, mind, and word. And basically, when you develop your Victor, could you bring up the development tree, maybe?
Yeah, we can. Let's see here. Whoops, I played with a controller before, but I think you mean this one, right?
Yeah, that's it. So you have the 4 dimensions right here from the top: heart, mind, deed, and word. And each of them represent a certain part of the human personality or human psyche. And basically those little like boxes of text that you had that were color coded, the more you develop your Victor in a certain dimension, the more he will be able to perceive of emotions related to that dimension, either when in contact with people, or as you said earlier, when interacting with objects that people interacted with, right? When you're picking up the emotions they left, the imprints on those objects. So if Victor developed more into, say, word, we'll be able to pick up more observations related to, you know, to the word dimension, basically.
Makes sense.
Sometimes, yeah.
I saw during prologue that there were some stuff that I couldn't see, and that was because I hadn't developed the right aspect.
Yeah, that's true. There is, you may find that there will be like a number of ways to finish a certain quest. Depending on the way you develop your Victor, you may end up, you know, funneling yourself one way and not the other. That's the thing. Like like the way you develop Victor will influence your gameplay, right? So the next time you're playing, you develop Victor differently. You will be able to finish different quests, you know, with another ending, right? Because you'll have access to those options, that kind of information, and not the other. And so the conclusions that Victor will draw will be different based on his information.
I also imagine that based on your choices, there might be some of these entities that you can't actually get during one playthrough, depending on the answers, or is it that you just can't use them to their fullest ability?
Well, the ones here, the ones that players are familiar with, these 4, as far as I'm concerned, all of them can be unlocked during a playthrough, but there is a number of other ones that may or may not be accessed, like depending on how you develop your character, right? Or which quests you end up doing, things like that, right?
Yeah.
Right, let's see if any questions. More
Yeah,
questions.
there's a question from Raymore Caro there again.
Do you have an estimate on how many hours it would take to play through the game? Also, I was wondering how many people are on your developer team. This game seems incredibly detailed, and I would assume it takes a lot of work and a lot of people. I can't give you a definite number right now on the amount of hours, that because it will all be like depending on how long it takes to get through the story and whatnot. And I didn't you know, memorize the numbers from the tests, but I can give you an answer in terms of the team. size. I think at the highest point, we had about, I want to say, 50 to 60 people working on the Thaumaturge at once. So, quite a sizable team.
Very.
Of course, that's not, yeah.
When you started the game, what year was it when you started developing it?
That was quite a long time ago. I wasn't actually there at the very start, so I don't want to, give the wrong answer. But I joined in
Think a little
2021, so almost been 3 years with the company now.
I'm going to take
And
a look around.
so the game has been in development for, say, the last 3 years plus some more, right? That I don't want to give the wrong number, so I'm just gonna say 3 years plus, if that's fine.
So give or take 3 plus. Yeah, that's okay, because
Yeah,
it
3
also
plus.
gives an idea of how much you've accomplished in such a short time too. In my opinion, short time, because I've seen games worked on longer with way less detail than this.
It all depends on on the scope of the project, right? Because
Very true.
currently, like the AAA games, the top in terms of scale and budgets, they usually take about 5 to 6
Do you
years
think it's a
from
good
start to
idea
finish.
stir people up and send them
But
to face
there's
bullets and
always some
bayonets?
sort of bumps
What
in the
do you
road
want
that you
then?
can't really anticipate.
My
So
whole
you have
life on my
to
knees? Kissing
try
Whiskey's
to do
ass?
your best, while you're going, right? You can't
I was trying to keep from
as
dragging
like
ordinary people
make a
into
plan
the
for every
fight.
contingency. That's just not possible.
Yeah, I mean,
Like there's too many moving
They won't
parts in
expect
video
us to
games to
strike
do that.
first.
yeah, and it
How
can go
many are
two
coming
different
with
ways.
us?
Like in one
Let's
side,
see
you
for
might end up having obstacles that you didn't expect, and on the other side, you might even have a new door open that gives new opportunities. But you have to ask yourself, is this something we should be diving into? Because it might give you a better chance to do something, but is it gonna add too much to the experience? So you never know what you're gonna have when you begin and what you're gonna have when you end too.
Absolutely, yeah. That's why you need, capable directors, who always, they guard like the scope of the game and that they set the direction for development. You need somebody at the helm if the ship is to get to shore,
Exactly.
So thankfully we had that. So we're getting to shore. There's just 3 days left until we get to
Yes.
port. Yeah. So hopefully you guys are gonna enjoy that.
Yeah, so far I've been only impressed with this game, and also I lowered the volume of the game a little bit so people can hear us better. So, but hopefully you can hear a little bit in the background. I'm gonna scroll it up a little bit. The fighting music, I just feel like it has such a nice, excitement type of melody to it without being too fanfare, which it can be in some games where it just goes like da 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 da. But this is subtle, nice, energized music.
Well, yeah, I gotta say that combat music is among my favorites from the game, if not my favorite. And what you will notice is that a lot of the music in the game, not just combat, but overall, has been influenced by the different cultures that lived in Warsaw. Some music is I want to say, uses the generic class. I'm not huge on music theory, so I'm probably going to spout some nonsense. But it uses the classic Western European arrangements and instruments and whatnot. But then also at a certain point, more elements of Jewish folk music will be introduced into the soundtrack. And I don't want to give more away than that, but the soundtrack was heavily influenced by the multicultural aspect of Warsaw as a city at that point in time. So that may be a more unique listening experience than some games offer. There's a much broader field in terms of inspiration that the game draws from.
Thank you. Also, we can take a very quick question here. Made in Poland asks how much the game will cost, or is costing.
You mean a store price, right?
Yeah, to buy.
So we have that info, and it was made available publicly today or yesterday. And I'm going to check it for you real quick right now, because I didn't memorize the number. So I got the page right here. And okay, I got it. The base game will cost $34.99 US and the same in euro, or 29.50 British pounds. I assume that platforms will convert this into your localized currency as per their own internal guidelines. I'm not sure. And then we have the digital. Yeah, and then we have the digital deluxe edition, which is $40.47 US and euro, and $34.09 in British pounds. I can actually wait. I'm not logged into Twitch right now, but if you want, I can send you a link to that post on the DMs, and you could paste it into the chat if that's not an issue.
Of course, of course. So the Twitter post you just linked there, right?
Yep, that's it.
There we go. So
the info is in that post.
Just to summarize again, so the base game is going to be 35-ish, no, like 1 cent off. So $35 or euros, or 30-ish British pounds for those that.
Yep. That's it. And then the digital will cost roughly $40, 40 euro, or 34 British pounds.
Yeah, it's a very good price for like what I've already seen in the game and the experience I've had so far. And we're about to enter a fight here, so
yeah. Basically,
what we are able to do is we have Victor, and then we have his Upir. Is what's it called, right?
Yeah.
And
Upir.
Yeah. Upir. Yeah. I love the way you say it, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
So
yeah, the R is unmistakable.
There's two different ways you can approach a fight, I would say, based on what I've seen so far. One is to just outright go and attack. So we see that this guy has 41 health and 39 health. But we also see that there's a focus bar, 6 and 3. What we do here is we decide if we want to attack their focus or if we want to attack them physically. And depending on what you do, you will notice up here that we have a turn order here where we'll see that this guy here is gonna do a right hook, and that will be before this guy here that's gonna do a stunning hit and this guy. So we can see in what order things will happen, and focus might be worth it because when they lose focus, you can then open up these attacks when they're in a form of breakdown. So basically you're driving them crazy, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. As a Thaumaturge, you like you said, we can attack either their health points or their focus. With focus being, you basically get, like you said, we give them a breakdown, which makes them open to a heavier attack. That's not the only way of approaching combat, though, because there's an additional layer to it, which you will see later on. Maybe I don't want to give it away too much. Yeah. But basically, having one Salutor will usually not be enough. You will need to be adaptable in combat, and depending on the circumstances. Yeah, let me put it that way.
Yeah, I also actually picked, because when you get to first like really big fight, I also picked balance, because you can pick story, then balance, and the one that was more brutal.
Challenge, I think.
Challenge, yeah. Before we continue, I figured I'd take the focus so people can see what happens with that. There's a question about consoles. When or if does it release on console?
It is releasing on consoles. I don't have that information actually regarding when, if it's simultaneous or not. Let me ask somebody about that and see if I can get an answer for you.
Of course. And I'll just do a thing so they can see what happens when you actually distract them. And I also want all of you to pay attention over here on his book. And thank you for asking all these questions, by the way, Octopals. He has his book here, and you will notice that he moves his fingers. And this is one of the things that gave me the Witcher vibe, because he uses signs with his hands, draws some small signs to, like, summon a shield or to mess with people's minds. So pay attention here as I click on this. Alright, it's him too, so he's also gonna break focus. So
I've got the answer for you.
Nice.
The console premiere is yet to be announced, but it's this year.
This year, okay.
This year, yeah, 24.
Yeah, I can imagine it's a little bit more complex than just being like, oh yeah, we're gonna have a like this and that happening.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't want to get into the details of it, but yeah, it's not as simple as, you know, okay, let's press the port button and then the game is available to buy now.
Yeah,
there's many more steps to this process, unfortunately.
I actually have a childhood friend who is the technical director of Helldivers 2. So
Oh, really? Wow.
yeah, and he told me a little bit about like the choices that go into it that people might not think about, and even just deciding what engine to use and what limitations that might cause for releasing on console can be a huge thing too. And do you want to invest in that particular engine? Does it still have support over the years? Will it be abandoned? There's so many complex questions developers might have to ask themselves. I also like this question.
And there's not even like that doesn't even go into the compliance requirements for every platform, right? Because every console has its own like bible of compliance rules that your game must fulfill in order to be released on it. So absolutely, it's a huge topic, porting games onto other platforms.
Yeah. And I feel like if you haven't already started building for the consoles initially, that can cause so much more work just to port it because you never thought you would, but then a door, as we were talking about earlier, opened that you hadn't considered, and now you have to ask yourself, like, to pursue that.
Is this possible even, right?
Exactly. Also, you had a question from Just Less, by the way. Welcome to our chat. It says, did you learn something interesting about Polish culture that you didn't know before, since there's so much history and folklore in this game?
That's a great question, actually. I did learn much more about modern meaning, start of 20th century, end of 19th century, history and culture in Poland specifically. But I gotta say, like, the most that like working on this game did for me is build a big sense of appreciation for the lives and the histories of common people specifically, because I spent a lot of time, working on these places that weren't necessarily palaces or castles or stuff like that, but pubs, houses in slum districts, docks, marketplaces. These are all places that were designed for and used by mostly just, everyday people like you and me, and it really let me, like, personally, in my thoughts and feelings regarding common people of the past, bridge a sort of huge gap that I had, with just how I would think about these people or how I'd empathize with them. Like, it's incredible when you think about that these people, like, they were literally just like you and me, just put into different material circumstances, without internet and all that, right?
Yeah.
It's insane to me. That's like the biggest thing that did for me. I don't have like any hot historical facts to spit from the top of my head, unfortunately. Maybe I'll think of something while we're playing.
Yeah,
like one of those things, I guess, what we're gonna see now in the street behind. Sorry for interrupting you.
Oh, that's okay.
In the street behind these policemen, behind the barricade there, there's this scene with workers building a sewer system and laying down tram tracks, and a sewer. I found out during the course of the game that it wasn't until the 20th century that Warsaw actually had a proper sewer system put in. So that's one thing I really was interested in learning. That it wasn't until very late that modern how do they call them, appliances, I guess, were installed in the city. Which was really something I didn't know.
So if they didn't have a sewer up until then, or proper sewer system, does that mean it was really smelly? Like people.
I don't know about the smell, but I heard when we were researching about how muddy we want to make the city, right? When we were doing research, we heard that it wasn't super uncommon for like drunk people or small children to straight up drown in the mud in the street, because it was because there was a lot of mud and it could go fairly deep. I mean, it's not World War I trenches style, no, not at all, but it did get very muddy and very dirty, because that's where all the water, like rainwater and everything went, right? So
wow.
Yeah.
I had no idea that was even a thing. That is insane.
Like I said, it's not that it was an everyday occurrence, but it wasn't unheard of for people
that is possible in the first place. It's still like you just casually walking down the street and then a kid is drowning in the mud. It's like, what the heck?
By kid, I mean, a 4-year-old or something, or like people who can't get out. Like, I mean, even today, you walk in the street, you pass out and you fall into a puddle you could drown if you're passed out.
True,
But it
even
was
then-
just way easier because there was more mud and water in the street. So there you go. That's one thing that I thought of.
That is so crazy. Thank you for sharing. That is like a perspective I've never thought. And it's like you said, but I suppose I can do this first so we can continue the game while also talking. To explain what happened here, I was doing focus, so you might notice he has full health, but based on these attacks, I can do 5 to 6, 11 to 14, but now I also open up the concussion, which, and I had this one before too, which would do overtime damage, but because I focused on his mentality, not only did I break him down so I now can do stronger attacks, he also lost one of his attacks in the process. When you break them down, their next turn is skipped, right?
Yep, that's right.
So now when I do concussion, he will take much more damage, and the good news is my helper also has the thing. I also just realized, like, there's 2 symbols right next to me, so if I click, do I lose a turn, or does it just, like, switch instantly?
Maybe you want to drop me down to the lower right corner for combat?
Yeah, there we go. But, like, I'm also a little bit too big, so it's a little bit behind me. I can move myself
Alright.
away real quick.
Yeah, that's
too.
don't worry. No, that's fine. But
I
let's
figured
just
for the people
see.
watching,
So
though.
you're asking if you click on the icon on Upir? Is that it?
Yeah, like, there's both up here, and then we have Butkiewicz, and, like, if I click, does it just switch and I continue the battle,
No,
or
no,
do
no.
they lose a turn?
You continue battle. You don't lose any turns. You can switch mid combat.
There
So you
go.
can switch to Butkiewicz. Yep.
That is so cool. I'm actually gonna see, like, where is me? Where can I find myself? I need to
You
hide
are
myself.
your attack is already queued. That's
No,
the
I
thing.
want to do this. There you go. So I can hide myself. There you go. Because then people can see the beautiful. I mean, like, look at how cool and badass the Butkiewicz looks here. How cool does he look?
Yeah, he's definitely one of, like, the scarier designs we've made. Our character artists are really talented people.
Very
Fair
talented.
play to them.
So this Sermian blow is what I open up with him, which will deal. Oh, it casts a state on all enemies too. So not only does it attack him, it also gives the other guy suffering that gives damage over time.
Yep. That's
got-
the power of heavy attacks. You want to use them as much as possible if the situation permits.
Yeah, because I know
So
that,
that
like,
guy
sometimes
is-
you build up to deal lots of damage, but then you build up and they deal damage during that time, so you're at a disadvantage. So sometimes you have to ask, like, do you punch fast or do you do the build up to the massive damage?
The combat is very, like, situational, and
Yeah.
your choice of Salutor will also be very important per combat encounter, because not all Salutors are equally, like, useful in every situation. I mean, they all have sort of their, I guess you could call it, the thing they excel at. So with these two, I would say Butkiewicz is definitely, like, the damage dealer. He can snowball into tons of damage real quick. Meanwhile, Upir has, like, a lower, steady amount of damage that he deals, but he can heal Victor with his attacks. So
Yeah.
that's really helpful in longer encounters.
Yeah, I noticed that on the boss fight I was doing earlier in the prologue, that the ear intoxication is really good for healing up your character if taking damage. Now it even says that I'm gonna get 0 health because I actually have full health down here in the corner, because the only guy who's been taking damage is this guy we're trying to help. So he's, like, being brutalized.
Good thing we have them, yeah.
Yeah, we can actually kill him here, so we can just go with this attack. I love these animations also when they get attacked, especially by the creatures.
There we go.
There you go.
Boom. Is he down? No, not yet.
Oh, there's
Okay, now he's down.
So
wait.
they can have a trait that makes them immune to your attacks. Oh,
That's the thing I was saying. Yep. So you're
different
going. That's
dimensions and they can be disabled. Oh,
exactly. So you will also have to be picky with, say,
ah. So in
Well,
other words,
yeah.
I want to pick the one that will help me
correspond. Yeah.
deal more efficient because it's corresponding to his way of life, basically.
Yeah, you could call it that, I suppose. Like it aligns most with his character, right? So if you hover over his bar at the bottom there, you'll be able to see what his trait is.
Ah, there you go.
No,
Yeah,
no, below, yeah, right here. So he has resistance, which reduces his damage by 80%, and you can attack him with Upir to disable the trait.
I'm actually moving up again so we can mostly see the bottom too. Also, thank you for all of you who are following right now. We're glad you're enjoying this. Rainbow Carol asks, do the choices you make affect how the game plays out? By example, that if you play more peacefully, it unlocks other options than if you would be more aggressive.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I'm glad you asked it. Absolutely. The choices you make will affect how the game plays out. Especially in the story, but in battle too sometimes. Not necessarily with regards to the aggression, but say you've got your other characters around you, and depending on your relationship with them, like how you act towards them, if you decide to help them or not, etc. This will affect like your relation with them down the road, and you know they basically you want to keep these things in mind when you're making these decisions, right? That, okay, can I, like this person say, I need something from them right now, or the other way around, actually. They need something from me. Do I help them out because, you know, I may need their help later on, or do I ignore them because I'm busy doing something else right now that needs doing? You gotta, like, you know, weigh these options when you're making these choices. Also, I'm glad you asked because we had that option earlier when we were chatting with Wanda. Victor, like all characters in this universe, he has his own flaw. Victor's flaw is pride, right? Maybe we can see the... Okay. Maybe we can see the chat option again in a second.
Yeah, sometimes you get to choose if you want to do a prideful answer or if you should just be more humble or sacrifice your ego for the sake of the dialogue.
So basically, Victor's flaw, pride, works that like most other flaws, but in dialogue, he can choose more proud responses, which will develop his flaw more, make him into more of a proud character, which, if you do decide to opt into that, will also give you more options down the road. So, say you're somewhere in like the mid game and you never chose proud options until now because that's just how your Victor is, and you get to some sort of conflict that needs resolving. There is a chance that if you did develop your pride, you would be able to somehow, you know, use that to get out of this or to resolve this conflict, basically, right? So that's another thing in terms of affecting how the choices you make in the story affect the gameplay later on, or the story later on. So you want to keep your relationships with other characters in mind, but you also want to remember that the way you develop Victor, both in terms of dimensions and his flaw, those things will also very likely affect your gameplay experience and the story that plays out.
You got away from the station.
What? I'm assuming you might have played it yourself a little bit. Which play style did you enjoy the most? The one where you fed your pride, or the one where you avoided it?
So for me personally, I never really enjoyed characters that are like, well, I guess just, you know, rude or arrogant or stuff like that. So I personally really didn't like choosing the prideful options. But a friend of mine from work, they love like playing the proud option. So I think it's really down to like your personal preference. I assume that most of the time when playing role-playing games, people tend to pick on first playthrough the choices that most like align with their own. Like that's just a feeling that I have. It may be wrong, but
I think you're right.
That was
I personally do that
for me.
myself.
Yeah, but then when you're you're going to a second playthrough, say you're going to do that just, you know, to see what a proud Victor looks like, right?
Now you can tell me more about yourself.
Yeah. Like what would happen if I went down the other path?
Basically, yeah. Or you just, you know, you challenge yourself. Okay, my Victor is going to be just a raging, you know, arrogant fool, you know, and why not? Like, go ahead. That's what the game is for you to go and have fun and experiment, right?
I mean, technically the game is made by a bunch of fools.
That is true, yeah. Theoretically, at least.
For those who don't know, by the way, I'm gonna show real quick here. This is why I said that. The developer is called
Welcome
Fool's
to the
Theory.
mysterious and
That's
fascinating.
So that's why. Anyway, I actually learned a fun thing once about making choices in video games, that apparently playing video games, and especially games like these, make people more empathetic, where we can just feel more empathy because we see what the actions do, and we get to see someone go through something we haven't, and now we can understand it better. So by default, a lot of gamers are more like can feel and express more empathy than someone who doesn't play games at all, and I thought that was really cool. I also learned that a lot of people are incapable, even on a second playthrough, of doing evil choices because they feel too bad about the choices they have to make. And I think that is so adorable that that's actually the real situation, not that people become like, oh, now I can be evil without any consequence, but they're like, but I don't want to. I don't want to kidnap this person. I don't want to punch them. I don't want to take their money. Like, I just love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'm one of those people. I find it
What
really
exactly
hard to
do your
be the
friends
evil
do?
character.
I'd be glad
I
to tell you
like in
over coffee
Red Dead,
and
right?
jam
I
donuts.
couldn't bring myself to play
I'm
the evil
afraid all
Arthur,
these
always the good
fools might
Arthur.
have more questions and want to keep you here longer.
I tend to
Then you won't
have a
just miss
problem
out on
being
the pastries,
evil
but
unless
also an
like the
adventure
game
worthy of
has
a
a
great
comedic
cause.
vibe enough. Like we were playing 60 Seconds Re-Atomized the other day, and
Shulsky.
I had a choice to
I see
cure a
you
wound with
won't
an
be hanging
axe,
out
and I
here
was
long
like, I
either.
want to find out what happens. And it turns out they just heated it up and saturated the wound. It was like, oh, that makes more sense than cutting it off. But like, if
I wouldn't have predicted that.
Me
The
neither.
outcome.
So if it's comedic enough, I can do the more brutal choice, but otherwise I'm like, I don't want to because that guy's gonna lose an arm because of me.
What
Oh.
about stuff like in games that aren't necessarily black and white, that you can be good or evil? Like what about games where your choices are basically reduced to a number of options that you see sense behind, but none of the other options are necessarily good? How do you feel about those?
So, what do you mean is like if I have to, I can make a choice that are not necessarily good, but it opens up other paths, or what did you say? Sorry, I was reading the screen at the same
Oh,
time.
sure. No, I mean like games that aren't very black and white in what's good and what's evil, but more like, there is a bunch of choices that you can make, and each of them has a certain logic behind it, but none of them are, ontologically good or evil. Or well, there may be an evil choice, but
So
they're
depending on
like there
perspective,
usually
they
aren't
might be
good
evil, they
choices,
might
right?
be good, like depending on the motivation of the character itself. It's kind of like
Yeah.
if someone were to kill someone, and you're like, that's just murder, but then it turns out to kill them because that person was gonna like blow up the entire city or something. So it's like perspective. So I would say I love it when it's not just so, like you said, black and white. You actually have so much more nuance going into your choices. What I don't like is when you pick a choice, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna pick this, and then you narrate, and especially as a streamer, you can be like, oh, when I pick this, my character will probably do that, because, like, I'm gonna disagree here, because if I disagree, I honor the point of this thing, and, like, you have a really good point, and it's really nice and wholesome. And then you click to disagree, and they basically do the exact opposite of disagreement, and they go with pride and resentment, and they just go full asshole mode on them, and it's like, no, that's not what I meant. Like, you didn't make this clear enough to me.
Yeah, games sometimes unfortunately do that. Hopefully you won't have that problem with the Thaumaturge. Like when Victor is asked what kind of coffee he drinks, he just makes the choice for you. You only get to decide if he wants coffee or not. So
This yours.
we narrowed down your options
That's
in
good.
problematic spots.
Then
But
take it
no,
and get
I
out
know
of
what
here.
kind of like lapses in logic you mean, and I'm pretty sure I haven't seen any
Can I ask
places
why the sudden
like
change
that
of
in our
plans?
game.
Anyone I
No, I
Thankfully,
feel like the
but
choices have been clear so far about what to do.
He'll tell you
okay,
himself.
I'm glad that's your
Thank
experience. That's great.
I did get
We did-
surprised with the first choice in the game, though.
Hang on, which one
where
was
it was
that?
like play a trick on the guy you want to write a telegram with. And
All right, yeah.
first I thought it would be more like a magic trick type of thing, but then was like to rather just what's the word? Mess
You
with
mocked him? Oh yeah.
So
Okay,
like
I get it.
mocking a little bit, like, but versus trick. But I also figure that that's also a language thing where some people will see it as the way he did it, and I like see trick as a different thing, like just experiences and possible cultural differences. So I did get surprised, not disappointed, just surprised by the outcome. Let's see, we need to go to the funeral at Pawlowski Cemetery.
Yeah, Pavonsky is actually a historical place. It exists. The exit is right there on the left. Pavonsky actually exists, and it's a cemetery where many, say, influential or important Polish people are buried. Let me bring up a list of.
Of course. I need to make sure I don't drown in the mud now.
Don't worry, it's not that bad. I don't think
I'm not
there is
drunk
an
yet.
option to do that. Well, yeah, like you can see, like only some roads were cobbled. Oh yeah, and here they are laying the sewer down there in the hole in the pit, I think.
Yeah, and for those wondering, by the way, when I right click, I use my Thaumaturge skills to be able to figure out where to go. It can also give me a feeling like when something has been interacted strongly, like let's say this brick here was used in some sort of murder, my character could feel the emotion that comes out of it versus the other bricks, because there was some fear and anger, rage attached to that brick. So we can use it both to find its way as well as learn about the history of an object sometimes and what it was used for. There we go. I tried playing with the controller. Yes, Sigurd, I did. It plays really well with the controller, actually. I really enjoyed it. So I figured out for the stream, try keyboard and mouse. I can give feedback on both. And I'd say the controller, to me, as a controller person, is actually super satisfying to use. And in my opinion, better. But it's also really good controls for keyboard and mouse. But I'm biased with controls because I just love controllers. Like, when I can play with them, it makes me happy.
Well, I'm glad you enjoy both options, though. Like,
yeah, both are good.
This is something we've had a lot of feedback about, and we tried to do our best to take that in consideration, and I'm glad that it worked out well. All right, there you are at the cemetery.
Yeah, it's like I appreciate that you have the short command buttons, for example, listed down here versus just like, oh, because some games just do like, oh, if you press the letter J, you get a urinal, and if you press the G, like, etc., etc. But here you actually constantly have easily visible which button was it again, which makes it very easy and accessible to remember what to push. Small detail, but very, very good.
I'm glad you like that. Yeah, visibility, like legibility rather than visibility. Legibility is something that's really important in game UI, and especially since between genres, these bindings can change as well. Like, if I remember correctly, a lot of MMOs would have your inventory on a B key as opposed to an I key.
Yeah, bag.
Thank you.
Yeah, bag.
backpack,
as opposed to
I guess,
inventory.
too.
Or
Yeah.
backpack, yeah. So that's just one example of how it differs. So it is important to make sure that your players know, what at a glance which button does what. So
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm glad you like that detail.
Yeah, I do, because I don't want this to sound wrong, but I did recently play another game that I'm just not gonna say its name, but their controls are so different from the standard of even their genre of game that and they don't even have a tutorial at all in the game. They just throw you into the game, and then it's like, have fun. And it's like, okay, but how do I do anything? So you just have to go with your gamer experience and potentially the genre, but there's still so many things that is hard to figure out by yourself. And that contrast to this, where it's like, oh, you just let me know I can press X to do this instead of having to move the mouse down to do anything. It's like, I'm so grateful going from that lack of instructions that would be good to have in that game. It's still a good game, that game too, but it's like, this is so much more accessible, and this is something I love seeing. And I had a best friend who sadly died to cancer, brain cancer, a few years ago. Towards the later part of his life, he had a mega stroke when they put his forehead plate back in because they had to take it out, and he was paralyzed on all of his body. He couldn't move one of his arms and one of his legs. To easily have access quickly, readily on front of your face like this being able to just use one hand easily and stuff, that is such a huge thing when you're in a situation like that. And I know that he had a few situations where he was exposed to this type of human kindness, I would say, and it moved him to tears, because it was so obvious to see that it's so easily forgotten how much it can change someone's life to simply have one hand instead of two. And everything is made in society for someone with two hands.
Yeah, it's like Werewolf Jester said, accessibility is super important, and I'm really happy that like flagship games right now often ship, because not always, with like really improved accessibility options versus what it was 5-10 years ago. Like video games are really improving, and my hope is that at some point games will be accessible to 99.99% of everyone, right? Because of course there is a certain point where you're just not able to interact, but like, I mean, I hope that we can get as close to perfection as possible. Is what I guess I'm trying to say. It is a great trend, absolutely.
I also saw here in the game, speaking of trends, I've been picking the proud answer most of the time, and I wanted to hide myself so that people can see that here we have one of those choices you can make of a proud answer, where it not only draws from your flaw of pride, but also feeds it even more. So this is where you can develop the character's pride and how much they will be a prideful character or not. So this is what it means to either do that or just pick one of the other options. So we're gonna feed into it, of course.
We've ruled out
as one does, right?
Exactly. We want to find out after all.
Yes,
but speaking of accessibility, and I just love seeing it, I actually saw a post on Instagram recently. A guy apparently had an accident, and it like completely removed his use of legs, and his hands were stuck in a position of like being bent together, like his fingers were bent all the time. So I don't know exactly what caused that, but it was clear that he had a very strong disability with using fingers at all. He had them, but he couldn't move them. So PlayStation sent a controller to him, which is like a circular device, and you could replace all the buttons in many different big stuff you can click, and then also what each button did. Highly customizable, and that's a controller from a console company, and that just made me feel like, dude, I'm so happy that it's moving in that direction and that the accessibility is becoming so much higher. It really warms my heart to see.
Absolutely, I'm so happy about that too. I think I know which controller you mean. I don't remember the name, but yeah, I think I've seen it as well. It's like this disc with buttons and all around it. Yeah,
it's so cool.
All this caught me off guard, but for now I don't have time to think.
How many people do we have now? 585. Nice.
What happened?
Yeah. Also, for those of you that want to learn more, you can type, like you see in the chat there, Thaumaturge will give you both a link you can follow to learn more about the game. And for those who missed it and may have tuned in recently, there is a charity called Rak'N'Roll that is also being supported by the wonderful people involved with this game because of, well, sometimes streamers play games and by themselves, sometimes they get a game, and sometimes there's more to it. In this case, it became a charity thing. So $1,000 have been donated to Rak'N'Roll, which is a charity for helping cancer patients.
Maybe I'll bring up that one thing again. There is a wordplay in the name of the company, or in the name of the charity. Rak is the Polish word for cancer, and I don't think I need to explain what rock and roll is. So if you put those together, that's how you get the name. There is this thing, now I remembered, that goes around Poland every once in a while. A lot of people grow their hair out and then donate it to Rak'N'Roll to help, you know, for free, to help make wigs for cancer patients. Yeah, I had a friend who did that once, and it was very nice of her to do that.
I suppose you've got your own
That's
matters
amazing.
to clear up.
Have you ever had any event, also since it's a similar word, but like Ragnarok?
I've heard about that. Yep.
Cool. I figure like since it's so adjacent, maybe that's also a thing, because I know it's been in more modern times more it's inspired fantasy and stuff with Yggdrasil and stuff. You can see that in many games, but I also know that just the Ragnarok has become more of a thing since like 80s, 90s and forward.
Yeah. But Matt, like you said earlier that you enjoy like Slavic pronunciations of words.
Yeah.
I love Nordic pronunciations of words. Like, can you say Yggdrasil again?
Yggdrasil.
Oh my god, that's that like that's totally down my alley.
Honestly, sometimes it's not easy to notice just how cool something sounds when someone says it with their accent and stuff, and that you have the same for them, and they're like, dude, that sounds so good. So thank you. I don't know what my I know exactly what my favorite name in Nordic mythology is. It's Ratatoskr. Or in Swedish, Ratatoskr.
How do you write that?
Does anyone know how to spell it and wants to write it down? Because I think it's Ratatosk.
Okay, I found it.
There you go. Ratatoskr. Basically, he was a squirrel that would deliver gossip between the rooster at the top of the Yggdrasil and the dragon at the bottom of it. So he was like a messenger, and he was also very sassy and upset with his job. He didn't like being the gossip squirrel, so he would like tell people like, piss off, like I have a job to do, I don't like it. And honestly, he's also the harbinger of doom, because he's the one who tells the rooster at the top that Ragnarok is coming. So he's the deliverer of the news that sets everything off.
A squirrel, right?
Yep, a squirrel.
No, 1 second. I'll play around my lighting because I'm really weird and pale right now. I'll try to fix it somehow.
Why do you think I became an octopus?
What do you mean?
No lighting issues.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I'm not usually like I actually work from home, so I don't have like a proper lighting setup for streaming right now. So I'm just doing the best I can with the stuff I have at home right now. So
I think you're doing good.
Sorry about that. Yeah, thanks.
I mean, sometimes one can look at a stream and be like, is my quality good enough? But it's not the quality of video or audio, it's the quality of person that people will notice and pay attention to.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, yeah.
I was reflecting at the grave.
All right, yeah, that definitely brought my confidence up. Thank you so much.
I mean, when I started streaming, like I didn't have a camera first, and I was already just like vibing. But then I got a camera because people was kind enough to provide me with an opportunity to buy one. I felt like obliged, like I should do this. They gave me the opportunity to. And I had to constantly think, like, okay, like, am I sitting straight up enough? Like, do I look like a slob because I'm hunched over? So it was this self-awareness, not that, like, do I look bad or anything, but more like the self-awareness goes up because now people see you. And one of the most common thoughts in my brain was, don't pick your nose. Don't pick your nose. Don't pick your nose. Because you don't usually do it, but when suddenly when you have the camera on you, then one thing you don't want to do, you know? Like, so even though I don't do that often, it was still like, don't pick your nose.
Yeah, oh, that and burping, absolutely. I was just sipping some, because, you know, it's still early this Friday, so I was just drinking Indian tonic, and, you know, it's fizzy, so, yeah, trying my best not to burp on camera as well.
I'm lucky enough to not have too much burping going on, but I also have a friend who streams, and when he just burps, and then he blames the chat instead.
My name's
That's one way to do it. Indulge your pride, right?
Exactly. He's being a victor.
Thank you, Rainbow Cara.
Such interesting friends you had.
All right.
I know, it's like when someone tells you.
Oh yeah,
sorry.
Go on.
I was about to say, when someone tells you, like, don't think about unicorns, what are you thinking about?
I guess I'm more tired than I
A white elephant.
With a horn.
Or pink elephant. Sorry, pink elephant is this thing you're not supposed to think about. My bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I just love that contradiction. Like when you're told not to do something, you can't stop thinking about it.
I mean, that's just how the human psyche works, right? So.
Yep.
Yeah, ask Victor. He knows. He's an expert.
Oh, is this some of the famous people in the graveyard, like Josefina Zulska?
Great grandmother.
No. This is the.
A Thaumaturge.
Well, it's their. Oh yeah, it's his grandmother. She was the Thaumaturge. This is basically their family mausoleum.
I barely remember him.
Cool.
Yes, you know, a little, just a tiny bit of family backstory here.
You know, I gotta admit, like, it feels weird, normal enough because of movies like Addams Family and stuff, and be like, oh, family mausoleum, yeah, sure. But it's like, at some point someone decided, you know what, I just want a really fancy place that looks fancier than most houses, where I just want to leave my dead body. And oh, by the way, I want everybody else's dead body to be there with me. And everyone's like, yeah, that sounds fair. Like,
Totally normal.
It just feels like such a surreal thing to explain if aliens came to be like, okay, how do you handle your dead? Well, you see, I like storing my entire family in a room.
I mean, I guess pride must be running in the family, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there is no other reason to build a fancy house for storing your corpse after you're gone and no longer needed. It's just pride at that point, man.
Yeah.
Same goes for pyramids and everything. It's all just pride.
Oh, dude, pyramids is actually the weirdest thing. Like, build a gigantic structure and hide my body in it. It's like, it's not even specifically clear where it is. You hide the body inside of it. Only the few people who hid it know where it is. It's like playing hide and seek with a corpse.
Don't forget to
Now
install the
it's all
traps.
over. Now,
Right,
who
yeah.
might we
Yeah.
have here?
Okay.
It's me?
Well,
You
that's
must
true, I
not have
guess.
recognized me.
Friendly
Even
Sarah
worse
says
with
less places
pyramids.
to visit.
Sometimes I
Sorry?
don't even
Even worse with
recognize
pyramids is
myself
like when someone
anymore.
rich died and like, I want
Don't
my
tease
servants to
him.
come with me.
He's had a
Oh
hard
my god, yeah.
day.
That was the weirdest.
Uncle
Not about
Ron.
the weirdest, but like,
Good
I guess
evening.
it does depend on your
My
beliefs, but like,
apologies.
come on. Let them
Let them
free, you
carry
know?
your
Let them
legacy
go.
onwards.
Funeral.
Yeah.
Eros postmortem.
Sorry, Mom, I can't come home. I'm gonna be buried with my employer. No.
Konstancja Shabwowska, the Warsaw Courier.
Roma
Can I
asked,
ask
how's
for
the
a brief
Thaumaturge?
comment?
Can't wait to play this game myself. Dude, it's so good so far. And the person you see in the upper left
Thank you.
corner is actually
And you,
the
sir?
level designer, right?
One of them.
One of the
Yeah.
level designers of the game. If you have any
I think
questions,
we've
you want to ask.
had a total of about 4 level designers working on
suggest
Thaumaturge.
you
If there were any
Otherwise,
more, that was
I'll
before my
overlook
time and I wouldn't have met
and
them.
make sure
But I've
you
worked with
never
3 other
pronounce a
people in level
single
design, so
syllable
yeah,
correctly.
I'm one of them.
You'd permit that to happen?
So yeah, if you have any
Judge?
questions, go ahead.
Maybe
Oh,
I
and
should
my name,
write
by the
about
way, is
this.
Robert
And who
Butkiewicz.
would
So
let you
I'm
print it?
very happy to be here with you today.
Someday the press
And we're
will get
super
the
happy to
Russian
have you. It's
boot
been
off
super
its
fun
neck,
so far.
Judge.
Mm.
I'm afraid none
Like,
of
I
us
know
will
some
live to
people
see the day.
prefer to be able to just focus
Come
on the
on,
game and stuff, but for
children.
me, I
I'm
grew
sure
up with
my
games,
Petya
always
is
thinking
already
these can
waiting
tell
for us at
stories
home.
that can inspire
I'd
us,
love to see
change our
you.
lives, enrich
Are
us.
you coming with
So when
us?
I get to talk with someone who makes games, even if it's a small seeming indie game of some sort, or something like this, which I would consider a more epic scale in the game type of thing, I just think it's cool to get to talk with those of you who were part of this process, because I feel grateful for the stories you're putting together that may, in a very big way, change some people's lives, and then sometimes it's like, I think I remember strongly is I once had a friend, and sadly they're not with us anymore because, yeah, let's just say their life ended prematurely. They had more years in life though, because a game resonated so much with the story it told and how it was done, and the writers and the designers should all be proud, because what they did was inspire that person to have a few more years in life, and that is something that is sometimes forgotten too. May seem simple, but you might be writing a line, designing a scene that can completely change and even give life to people.
I know exactly what you mean. I remember certain time that was very
I'm
difficult
sure the
for me,
lawyer
and
is
that
already
just
waiting
happened to
for us.
coincide with the launch of Cyberpunk 2077. And man, I still, like, when I think about that game, I think about the way I felt back then and the amount of joy that game gave me. Like, even, you know, a lot of people knock it for its state on release. I had very little trouble with the game, and I remember
Same.
it so fondly, despite like all the rough stuff going on in my life back then. I know exactly what you mean, and yeah, I agree absolutely. And shout out to the Quest and Writer teams who worked on the Thaumaturge. You guys are amazing. I love working with you.
Yeah, big applause. because I feel like the writing and dialogue has been great, which segues into Roma Alfie here, saying, the game takes place in Warsaw. Why no Polish voiceover? Is there a possibility it might be added later? I wonder, like, do you mean, real quick, Roma, for clarification, that even if you pick English, that there should be Polish voices, because, you know, some people prefer that? Or do you just mean, like, a Polish language setting? Because, does that exist or not?
Is that question to me
Yeah, that's
or
a question
towards
too.
Roma?
Like, does a Polish language setting for the characters exist already or not?
Not at the moment, and that's all I'm going to say right now.
Okay.
Sorry
Possible.
about the secrecy. We will talk more after release, I'm sure.
Yeah. Because I know there's like, I think it's Crisis actually back in the day that had this setting that even if you were in English, you could have the enemies, as they were, I believe, Korean, actually speak Korean while your characters were speaking English. Just to
Yeah, I
really
know
immerse
what
themselves.
you mean, but that's actually kind of one of the ways I love to play games the most as well. Like, say I'm playing a Japanese game set in Japan, I'm absolutely putting on Japanese voiceover. When I played Plague Tale, I put on French voiceover because the game's set in France, right? So I understand where this is coming from, and please bear with us. That's all I will say.
Bearing with you. And honestly, when there's a choice for Japanese voices, on stream I take English because it's easier to like keep up with everything if you don't have to read everything while you're also reading chat and stuff. But off stream is like Japanese voices. 99 out of 100 times, Japanese voice acting is gonna be superior because they live and breathe voice acting. They have voice acting schools. They have like over 50 years of advanced experience of voice acting, and a single noise can express a full sentence of feelings in Japanese voice acting.
It's, you know, it's like the old anime adage goes, subs over dubs, right?
Exactly.
Chat, anybody here fan of subs? Come on.
Now, your sister's putting a face on
Always, like,
there are
always
some,
subtitles over dubbing. Sorry.
yeah, there are some dubs that I've heard that have been pretty good, to be honest. Not as good as the I love how everybody is
subs. Yeah, there was one person that said dubs, but they got dominated. Absolutely.
and that's okay. Like, go with the preference you prefer, and it's like
That's true. Yeah. Absolutely.
Like, because sometimes it's just because you can't keep up with the Japanese, you don't read fast enough, so it makes sense, or whatever language it is. But I just love also that sometimes, even though the voice acting may not have been amazing, oh my god, have you heard the Russian voice acted cat in Batman?
No, I haven't. Which part was that in?
I'm gonna show here. So this person, a Russian voice actor, is like, you know what a cat sounds like, right? And this is the cat.
No просто класс.
And it's like... and it's so bad. It's like, do you know what a cat sounds like? It's like...
It reminds me of the medieval illuminators who were asked, hey, have you actually ever seen a horse? Yeah, dude, sure. And then just they paint an egg.
Yeah, egg with legs. It's like, really? So basically, like, some voice acting is just so bad, it's like a classic, and it's like, what were they thinking? Why did no one in the room at any point during the recording go like, you know what, I don't think that's what a cat sounds like, you know?
All of the animals that we have in the Thaumaturge were used like regular animal sounds. We didn't hire any exceptionally skilled voice actors to do it. Don't worry.
The cow in the field was played by Viktor Romansky. No, but I did actually see, and this is a very important thing for you all to know, there was a dog in the prologue, and yes, I could pet it.
Yep, you can pet dogs. Absolutely. We need to add a counter for that somewhere online, I'm sure.
Honestly, that would be great. Like how many dogs were petted in the game. Can we restart reading your father's will? I mean, sure.
Yes, let his will be done. Again.
Yeah, it's mostly
Let's begin if
you
everyone is
basically
ready.
just yeah.
Would you all please take a
You can
seat?
walk around the house and do some minor stuff,
Ladies
but
and gentlemen,
right now this is
by
the main
power
focus,
of
just to
my
get the will
office vested
over
in
with.
me by the grace
Yeah.
of His Imperial
I was personally
Majesty,
figured for the sake of the
Emperor
game
all
to
Russia,
see a
I
bit more of
hereby
the
testify.
storyline and the things that may progress and unlock, so people get a chance to see what is this going to give you the opportunity to do. So sidetracking is something I usually
don't
do and
pay
just
them
go
any
all
mind.
over the place. So, but I figured I'd try to focus a bit on the progression, so we see more stuff.
Sure, yeah. There's going to be a major plot point in a second. Actually,
My last
no
will
spoiling.
and testament recorded in the year of our Lord 1888. In the name of the Holy Trinity. Amen.
So this is one of the locations I actually worked on. This is the study of Victor's late father. He would have guests here and work and research stuff in this study here.
And you will potentially recognize it a little bit, I imagine, if for the prologue, because I was caught like off guard by the really cool scene where you get his father talking to him in the prologue. For those none of you saw it actually. I played it off stream, so for those of you that missed it, everybody, he was really sick in the beginning, and Rasputin actually helps him. How would you pronounce Rasputin, by the way?
In like Polish or
Yeah.
in an English act? Okay, in Polish it's Rasputin.
Rasputin, nice. Basically, he helps your character get well, but while you're going through like sort of fever dream, you see your father, and he sits in this room, basically accusing you of throwing your life away. It was a really cool scene.
Excuse me, but could we get
Yeah,
to the details?
you may have seen that this scene in the trailers.
we
It
all
was
want
in
to
one of them,
address
I
the more
believe.
temporal
I think
matters,
in
don't we?
I don't remember which one
theory,
specifically, but I
Would
remember
you be so
it was there.
kind?
I remember the desk and the
course.
sabers in the
Ah,
background
here we
above
are.
the desk. All of that good
All
stuff.
movables and
the portrait, yeah.
immovables relating to the family enterprise, I entrust to the care
honestly,
and
like,
administration of my
Considering recommending this game
I
to my
do not
father,
prescribe
because
a method
he
of
likes games with choices.
administering
He is a
them.
little bit
I
more
merely
sensitive to
offer
the
her
aspect
one
of
piece of
not
advice.
fear of like
To my
monsters and stuff, but
brother-in-law
he's not
and
necessarily
old friend
entirely into that.
Alexander
However, my
Rowe, I
mom
wish
might
to
like
leave
this because she
before
loves
the
The
wind.
Witcher 3.
Oh,
My
really?
collection
Wow.
of
Yeah.
muskets
My
and
parents
two
don't play at all, so
revolvers
I
dating to
don't know
the
what it's like to
uprising
recommend games to your
memory
parents. It sounds
of
awesome,
our
to be
first
honest.
city.
Yeah, my mom and dad, especially my mom, played games when I was growing up. She actually tends to joke that while she was
Enjoy your
breastfeeding
retirement.
me, she was playing the first Zelda at the same time. So she was breastfeeding me gaming. Like
That's
started at a young
so
age.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super
I
cool.
re-
So,
I recently visited my primary school because I went to
Oh.
school not in Poland but in Ireland, and I recently got to visit them and like chat to them about like the work I do. And like I remember when I was sitting in those desks, like the same desks, and just dreaming of being a game developer. You know, these things stay with you like
I wish you
They do.
success with
for
your business
forever.
and
I
your
spoke.
hobby.
I once
I'm
spoke
going to
to
have
also
something to
another
eat
teacher
before
from
heading
high school,
off.
my English teacher,
Just a
and he
moment,
was
thanks,
reminiscing
Mr.
about
Szulski.
when him and
Your
his
name
wife
is
had their
also
first
mentioned
daughter,
here.
and she would be sleeping in the cot
A
next to them,
last-minute plot
and
twist.
they were up all night
I
trying to
would
take
also like to
care of
come
good
to
care of
the
her,
aid
but
of
they were
my
also
only
meanwhile
son, Victor
playing, because that's when the first Witcher
By
game came out, just
entrusting him
playing
with
that
the
stuff
use
all
of
the
my
time.
passionate
Yeah,
blood,
I mean these,
Grimoire.
like you said
You know
earlier with the
that he will be able to make good
yeah, I
use
think
of
I don't
it.
think you name
This
dropped
is
the
my
game, but
last
with that
will
friend,
and
right,
testament.
who
Carry it
found the
out
game very
solemnly.
inspirational. Like these
Though
things,
you
they
may
stay with
have
you.
found
I love
it
that
Yeah.
about games. They really
However, this last
developed
bequest
over the last,
poses
what,
a certain problem.
30 years, like incredibly.
Yes, it certainly
Yeah.
does.
I feel like
what is
with
that
resources
saying?
making it more accessible
I am
to
not in
both,
possession
like
of this
voice acting has
grimoire.
become way
The
more
late
common.
Mr.
I've noticed,
Szulski
even in
used
indie
it
games,
up
and I just
until
feel
his
like it's
death.
also
Yet no one
before you might have
left
had to
it with
work
me
so much
after his
on
passing.
polishing up the audio and
Meaning
structuring it
it's
together, but now you
disappeared?
probably have a much more efficient system of both receiving the audio and putting it in the games, which makes it a much more accessible
Did
thing
Father
than in
have
the
his
past.
grimoire on him at the time of
That's
his
true.
death?
Like, I mean, a lot of
only
the
because
time,
of the grimoire that
now
we
tools are like
identify him.
coalescing. So say
What actually happened?
or
How did
Unreal,
he
for
die?
instance, which we're
A
developed the
building
Thaumaturge on, it's
collapsed
getting
on
more
top
and
of him.
more with every release like tools to work in the engine that you don't have to use external software that as much anymore. Like I know a person who didn't open Blender even once, you know, during the in terms of like animating cutscenes. They didn't do anything. They did all of like the I forget what the thing is called. It came in Unreal 5. It was something to do with like the skeletal mesh. Well, anyway, they were able to do all the cutscenes there and right there in the engine. You know, no need to learn a new software, which is incredible. Like you were saying, it's getting more and more accessible, and I think it's a good thing. Like the more developers we have, either professional or hobby developers, the better. Absolutely.
Yeah. And more stories can be told, and people with different experiences are able to produce these stories without having to be held back by the lack of knowledge, lack of enough people. So it makes me really happy to see.
Also like software, because sometimes certain software is behind a paywall, and somebody said in chat that I was referring to the control rig. Yeah, absolutely, that's the Unreal feature. I mean the control rig. So now you don't have to use external software, be it either free or paid to do this stuff. You could just do it in the engine without even switching the program you're using. It's incredible. Yeah, I love it.
I also want to point out, since I also saw Ghostbusters remarking on it, I'm glad you guys are enjoying the fact that usually I talk a lot with chat, but I want to focus always on the dialogue. But we see all your messages, so if you have any questions or comments, do feel free to mention them. And I also want to say on Snibby Bibbers, I've seen a bunch of articles recently where it's like, this company is doing layoffs and this company is doing layoffs, but then it's actually dawned upon me a little bit that just this topic here too, like, when it's so much more easy and efficient to make games, I suspect some of the layoffs may actually also be based in that some people might not have anything left to do at the company because they need less to do more on some fronts. I wonder if that motivates some of the layoffs in some places, so not all are bad as much as just things are easier, like, to make now.
That is an option, but I like, I'm going to... We were talking about empathy earlier, right? Like, I feel so sorry for all the fine folks, because now you got a lot of people have to completely, rearrange their whole lives because they had to move to a such and such city because certain companies don't support work from home.
That sucks.
You can only come into the office physically, and that, and then you get laid off, and what can you do, right? You're stuck with a mortgage. Like, that's insane, and I'm like, shout out to everybody from company, both who got laid off and who survived the layoffs. Like, I know there are better days on the horizon, right? Stay strong.
It tends to go up and down all the time in many aspects of life. And also, just to highlight, I also, of course, mean that it sucks to be laid off, but it's also not necessarily a sign that a studio is struggling either, so other people in the studio aren't at risk either. So it's more that they are making it quote-unquote more efficient, not having workers that were more needed before, so it sucks that it changed it that way. And preferably they would use that extra manpower to look at what they can put that to use to instead. That would make better sense to me. Like, keep this person who everybody knows in the company and readjust what they're doing, because there's probably so many things in their field they could still do. Or, like, start more projects would make sense to me in some cases.
I guess. I mean, I'm not in the business end of things, so I can't really speak to that with any authority. But as we know, the 2023 was like a record year for profits in gaming. Profits are up once again, so it makes the layoffs all the sadder. But luckily, we were able to avoid any layoffs both last year and this year, so that's a fantastic thing. I'm really happy about that. That would have been like the worst thing ever, to be working on this game, the Thaumaturge, which I loved working on. To date, it's my favorite project that I worked on, and then be hit with like a layoff or something. That would have been the worst. But thankfully, we managed to avoid it.
That makes me happy to hear.
Hope it stays that way too.
Makes me want to ask, what other projects have you worked on since this one is your favorite? What are the other ones?
Even I don't know.
Well, it's favorite because it was like the biggest one, and this is actually, for me personally, the first game, I could call it like a flat game, as in traditional gaming, because I previously worked in VR games. So I worked on
Unfinished business
2 or 3
remains.
VR projects
We'll
before
never
this.
learn what's
So,
stuck
you know,
inherent in his
going into
heart.
this, like, a lot of stuff changed
What
for
do
me
you
because I
intend
never
to
worked
do?
with, you know, traditional video games. I mean, VR level design is something completely different compared to,
I think we have to look
in this
for the
case,
answer in the
isometric
place where
VR.
it happened.
Or, sorry,
If you're
isometric level
right, you
design.
can make out more in those
It's
ruins
something
than
completely
I,
different,
or
and so that was
uncle, or
a big
Detective
challenge
Ted.
at first, but
This is a
I'm
good
confident
lead,
that
but
we managed
the only one?
to pull through. Like I'm pretty happy with most places in the game. So
And where our father's
some other
things are,
projects,
gentlemen?
I mean, I don't necessarily want to
standing at
name
the
drop
very
them, but I
center of
worked
his
on
kingdom.
1 or 2
Not everything
games
has been
were
sorted through
which
yet.
focused
Go right ahead.
spell casting
store?
on the VR. So
I should
I mean,
check them too.
people who
I
look my
started
name up can
stock
find those for
taking
themselves.
there
But
to distract
yeah, that was
myself.
one I
I don't
fondly
want
remember
you to
too.
go
But
in there
what I
before
mean
I
by favorite
finished.
is that this one
As you wish.
went on for much longer because this was a bigger project at a bigger company, and
Father evidently knew a
there was
certain
more
Blanc
work to be
connection.
done, and it was
Have
done
you
with
heard
more
anything
people. So,
about
you know,
him?
just like the
Could
scale
he?
increase made it all the more
No,
exciting
it
to me as
doesn't
well.
ring the bell.
You get to dive
I guess
deeper
that-
into it, be surrounded
Yeah.
by it for a
People
longer
came to
time.
Papa's store.
Absolutely, that's exactly
That
what I
doesn't
mean. And
mean
so
every one of
I
them
assume
might know
that, you
something
know,
about
in
the
years to
grimoire.
come,
That's true.
if I ever
You've got your
complete
work
like
cut
a
out for you.
project that I consider better, maybe the Thaumaturge will, you know, relinquish
And
its
Mordechai
#1
Hyatt.
spot on my
Could that
personal
be a
list. But
deal?
for now,
I don't think
absolutely,
so.
hands down, my favorite
He
project to have
worked with Father,
had the
but he left more
opportunity
than a
to
year ago.
work on and complete.
I don't know why.
Which can lead us to
He
the
was an
question,
assistant at our, well,
is there
my
any
store.
area in the game where you
Do you
wish
know
you
where I
could
might
have
find
done more, but you couldn't because of
Sadly,
either time limitations or
have any
technology
other
limitations
ideas?
where you're like, oh, I wish I could do this, but I can't?
Let me think about that now.
Now at least I can see how little
I
know.
suppose,
Maybe
without
there's
giving
scraps
stuff
of
away, some
information
areas
hidden
that,
somewhere.
small areas that were
now that we
unfortunately
know what's got to
cut
be
from the
figured
final
out,
game just because we chose a
forgive
different
me, my
direction. It
darlings.
wasn't due to like time
I'm going
constraints
to
or
give my
anything.
old bones a
At
rest.
one point, there was
I'll see you out.
supposed to be more floors in this estate here of the Shulskis, but you know
Goodbye,
we went with just
Ligia,
these
I'm
the
sorry
ground
it
floor
turned
and the
out
upper
this
floor,
way.
and then you also I guess have the
That
basement.
wasn't
Yes,
close
that's
by.
something I wish I could have done. You know, just add more floors, make the house bigger,
The most
cooler, make
important
more
thing
stuff
is
in it.
you're
But we
here
went,
now.
you know, we had to keep our scope in mind. But a thing that, like, personally for me, there is this one very specific house in a poorer part of the city that was the very first interior I did for the game, and I wish I could have spent more time on that later on. Somebody else ended up, like, you know, taking it off my hands and polishing it, but I wish I could have, you know, done that because, like, I don't know, a personal thing, you know, the very first place you do in a game, like in terms of an area or a level.
Becomes like your baby. You wanna like keep
Something
being
like
involved
that,
with
yeah.
it, and like, I want to be part of this. It's like seeing it off to
Something like
college and you don't get to be there.
that.
Eldon asked when release date is, and that's on Monday for PC, and then later in the year you said for the console version?
Yeah, that's right. 4th of March, this Monday. There is no pre-order yet, but the price, you know, the price tag is, like everybody else in the chat said, very attractive. So, you know, you might not even need to pre-order. I'm sure you'll just remember the date.
I
Thanks
shared
to
a link
this
again to
absolute...
the Twitter that lists the different prices for the
Alright,
different
yeah.
regions. For those that
That's
want
it.
to check it out. You can also click the first link to read more about the game, the reference link you can see there. And then the other link you might have noticed is the, for those that may have tuned in later, is a charity that has been contributed to with $1,000 by the lovely people involved with this game because of like this stream here. So it became a bit of a charity stream, like developer interview type of thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm glad we
Yes, I'm
managed to
not too
put this thing
fond of
together.
this
Like,
place either.
it's a very good
This is
cause,
where I
right?
had my last
Helping
Yeah,
conversation
it's
cancer
with my
patients.
father,
So
just
thank
before
you
I
to
left.
all the fine people at
If you
the
can call it a
Rak'N'Roll
conversation.
charity as
These
well.
are my dreams.
Great work that you're
Nightmares,
doing,
actually.
and yeah,
Ever since
I
decided
guess
to come
you're a part of the
back,
reason that we are here today.
keep reliving the same memory.
Yeah.
The lone shark
Okay, yeah.
incident.
Oh yeah, like Rainbow
We
Kato
are
said,
seeing his
releases
death tomorrow
on
morning.
Monday. You can always wishlist it,
Wonder if the
and
shop is
the
still there.
price is roughly €35 for the
Perhaps
base
we should
game,
go
and
there
I think
check.
40 for
40,
the
yeah.
deluxe edition. Yeah.
And for those who don't know, wishlisting actually does help developers a lot too, because it recommends the game to more people when you wishlist.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you can also go
Absolutely.
wishlist at once if you want to.
There is actually no. Hang on. Wait. You can actually search it up, the most wishlisted upcoming Steam games, and the Thaumaturge has, thanks, like literally today, risen 3 spots. So that's a
Wow.
fantastic thing. It's been hanging around the 69th spot for months now, out of all the thousands of games on Steam. So that's a really good number. But
it is.
there's another reason why that's a really good number. Yeah, nice, exactly.
Exactly. I just like, don't say anything, Thorlar. Let him speak. Nice. Anyway, so glad to hear it's gone up multiple steps, and that's something that I actually know that it's so easy to not know sometimes that, and I try to remind people that do it because you want to and it's right to you, but do know also that your wish list or your like of a video or anything, like maybe there's a game coming up and you put a like on the YouTube video, you may think you're one person, but every single time you click something, the platform tends to go, oh, if you liked it, someone else might, and it recommends to random people. So this is why it's not just a number of likes or wish lists, it can also lead to your single click being the snowball that makes a game go from 10 wish lists to 50,000 because of who it recommends it to.
Yeah. So one person in chat, Rainbow Kato, asked if we have any information on what the deluxe edition adds. I sent you a link to the digital deluxe edition announcement. It's only 30 seconds long if you'd like to put it on the screen.
Oh, I'm gonna put it on, but first I'm just gonna spend 10 seconds getting some water because he just ran out, and I'll be back in literally 10 seconds. So if you have a 10
All right,
second
let's
story,
both
tell
do
it now.
that.
Okay, yeah, do
Let's
that.
both do that.
You're right. Then I'm gonna put the video on
6,
screen.
5.
Fashionable
and we're
hairstyle
back.
and facial hair. Ooh, look at that.
Oh yes, we have customization available for Victor, absolutely.
I don't know.
Oh,
And you
so
get
that's really close.
you get
Around.
additional
May I
styles
ask what you
with the
ladies
and
are
clothing
doing?
as well with the deluxe edition.
Which version did you give me? Like, can I do this too, or like, do I have to upgrade? Because this looks cool.
What everyone does. We're
No, I
evaluating.
don't think you. This is available in the version you're playing.
Sir,
Unfortunately,
so
you have
good.
a unique
Oh yeah, we have
opportunity.
a UI
Printable
reskin as well.
model,
and
the
there's-
column figurine. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you can 3D print that. There's a map of
Oh.
Warsaw from 1905. There's some notes from the grimoire, set of wallpapers, and the music. Right.
Oh, that is so cool. I also love it. Like, I don't think I've really seen any game or company really make it like, oh, if you have a 3D printer here, you can print your own statue. Like, they usually make it themselves or something. This is such a smart actual approach to a deluxe edition because it saves both shipping and cost for the company, but also makes it more accessible to have some sort of like quote unquote official type of figurine like that. That's so cool.
Yeah,
So
I
for-
think that was done maybe once or twice in the past. I feel like I've seen it somewhere, but I don't have an idea of where that could have been. So maybe we are the first. Maybe it's just some sort of weird deja vu.
First time I'm seeing it, and at best, like I said, it's very rare, and I love it. I would definitely love to see more like that. That's so freaking cool. I don't have a 3D printer myself, and also
If
Roma
3D
says,
printing can. Oh yeah.
Yep.
Go on.
Now
Sorry.
you first.
Okay, so sometimes it depends on the sort of filament you use, right? Sometimes 3D printing can get pretty expensive. It's all completely dependent on what you 3D print with, right?
Yeah.
And you were
So-
saying?
Roma says, is it a real Warsaw map or a game version map?
Oh, that's another interesting thing. I'm currently not sure, but the kicker is these two maps will not be that different. It may be just, okay, one building is rotated and 2 streets or 3 streets realigned. We really did our best to make the game map, cover the real world map of Warsaw as faithfully as possible. Like to line them up, right? We did our absolute darndest to make sure that that's the case, and we really didn't take a lot of creative liberties with the layout of the city. So that's a cool fact about the game.
Thank you for that work.
Oh yeah, we did a lot of like work trying to stay, you know,
Hello?
try to stay accurate to how the city looked.
Do you hear me now? Victor?
Hey, look, we met Rasputin again.
Oh yeah,
Grigori?
and see, Victor has a
Yes.
telephone at home that
Yes,
tells you
like
they're
we were talking
loaded.
about earlier.
On the other end of the line.
One of the what,
at
10
home,
people
where the
you can call in
telephone
Warsaw? No, there was many more, obviously, but
It's so crazy to think that at some point, like, people had a telephone, but it's like, who do you call? It's like, there was nobody to
right,
call.
yeah. Or
it
like,
was
imagine encountering a telephone for the first time in your life as an adult, like Rasputin
Has
just
something
did,
happened?
right? The very first words he said were like, "Do I talk into this thing or what?" Something
you
like
hear
along
me
those
now?
lines. Yeah, yeah.
I am
It reminds
speaking.
me of that old picture, or the photograph rather, of Soviet peasants hearing a radio for the first time. Hang on, I'll try to find it.
Of course.
I'm glad. It's good to
I think
hear
it was
your
like the
voice.
1920s or 1928.
It's good to hear you as well. Goodbye.
So just a couple of years, what, 25 years after the Thaumaturge? Yeah, I found it. Apparently, that's the story behind the photo. I hope I'm not being misled. It must have been like crazy to be a middle-aged even, or even an elderly person, and like for the first time hearing a human voice come out of a box, right? Whether a
Yeah.
telephone or a radio. That must have been crazy. Like that's another thing about the this time period. It's like people don't realize how fast technology started developing already back then, like in the early modern period, or that's not early modern, my bad, but like in the modern period, say like Victorian era, right? It accelerated so fast. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's like, isn't there some sort of saying, like, in just 10 years, at some point during the 1900s segment, we had as many inventions as there were the past, like, 300 years. So
I would not be surprised at all, yeah.
Like before it was like, oh yeah, now we eat with fork and knife. Oh yeah, we have an indoor bathroom. Oh, we have sewage system. And then it's like, oh, by the way, we have phones, we have computers, and we have
Radio,
typewriters,
railroad,
like,
everything. Right?
exactly. And it's
First
like
car.
suddenly, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And now we're so used to the technological advancements, we can see new stuff almost every single day of bigger and smaller scale, and you just be like, oh, yeah, we're progressing. And it's like, back then it was like, holy
Have you found
crap, a
anything yet
box that
about the grimoire?
talks.
Is there any way I
A
can
box
help?
that talks, yeah. And that's a good pitch if I've ever heard one.
Maybe that should be the pitch for this game. Like, yes,
A
like
box that talks, yeah.
one of those review things that you have, like, from the content creators, like Thorlar, a box that talks, amazing. Like, review of the game. 10 out of 10. So let's see here. Let's pick that.
Oh yeah, friendly Sarah's got a
And what
good
does
point.
father have to
Look
do
at
with
video games, and Pac-Man came out only 44 years ago,
Oh,
and now
yeah.
we're making, you know, photorealistic video games. VR, like full VR. Well, not
Yeah.
full. Okay, you don't have like perfect haptic
If you know what
feedback,
to
but
say,
you know,
then
it's incredibly advanced.
Where can I find
Very advanced, and the fact that we can
When
also
she's in town,
control
she stays at
some
the
stuff
Imperial
on
Hotel.
computers with the
She might know
power of
something,
thought.
but
Like, there
how
are
do we find
literally
them?
machines. They can be hooked up to
That's so
people who can't
fast.
move, but they
To
can
get in, you're
control
going
by
to need
not just
me
looking
and
at the
my
monitor, but by
connections.
thinking, move the mouse to the right, and it registers their thought pattern. Like, that is insane.
Yeah, I've seen those things like in action. It's incredible. I follow this one guy on Instagram, who, as you said, cannot really move on his own, but he's he's a bank employee thanks to the such an appliance being a part of his PC setup, so he can just, you know, casually work at a bank from his bed.
Amazing.
It's incredible, yeah.
Also, we just got rated by a Dungeon Master. Thank you so much. I hope Minecraft was fun to you. You're joining us during a special time where we actually have one of the level designers of this game, Robert. I believe you said your first name was.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, I tend to recognize people's Discord names so much better. So, Robert here is helping answer questions about the game and its development and like, hanging out and talking with us here. And it's been super fun. I also want to say thank you to Sigurd for gifting a sub to Roma Alfie Holmes, which actually gives $1 to cancer research when that happens in our stream. So, there you go.
Yeah, we are at a charity stream here today also, thanks to the donation made to Rak'N'Roll Foundation. It's a charity that helps cancer patients. So yeah, shout out to those folks as well.
Shout out to them, and for those who want the link, we both have it under the stream, and if you type !Thaumaturge, and welcome in everybody. Right, I think I started thinking about like the power of accessibility. Like, I don't know if you remember this story, but there was this French journalist, I think it was, and he had a stroke or something when he was out driving with his son, and it left him paralyzed to the point where he could only blink with one eye. And he wrote a book. Have you heard that story?
No, go on.
Basically, one of his secretaries was at his side, and she put together a system with him where his blinking would be yes and no, and other signals like blink once, blink twice and stuff. And together, he actually told what she would write in a book, so she could actually write his story, and like it was a like biography. So just one eye and blinking helped him do that. Imagine what he could have done if he had the technology of today too.
Yeah, right. Well, when was that? Do you remember? Like the decade, maybe?
I don't remember. There must have been sometimes during the 90s. I'm actually gonna see here. Something with a butterfly behind the glass or something. Let's see here.
Okay, that rings a bell somewhat.
Let's see here. It is the diving bell and the butterfly. Bauby is the name of the guy. Wrote an entire book by blinking his left eyelid, which took him 2 months, working 3 hours a day, 7 days a week. Insane. But that's like, I just think, like, imagine what people in that situation with that technology nowadays, like how much more help they get and what could have been done back then too.
Yeah, I agree.
What's a soiree?
Yeah, 2 months is very little, so the productivity of that.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you like.
He knew what he wanted to say.
He must have spent a lot of time every day doing that.
Very fun.
Yeah, there's actually a documentary that one can watch that tells his story too.
You track down some evening clothes.
Do you know the name of that documentary?
Unfortunately not. I watched it a long time ago, so this is how I even knew about it, and I was like, dude, that is so impressive and inspiring.
Everything in my wardrobe is antediluvian.
Yeah.
Like, as long as you still have the will and desire, it's like my best friend. Even though he lost so much in his fight against cancer, he never lost his smile or interest in other people. Like, it was just a genuine, pure, happy smile. I'm happy I'm alive. And once upon a time, we were walking when he had that situation, and he was in a wheelchair for most of it, but sometimes he would want to get up and use a cane on his health side so he could actually, or like a crutch, so he could move around a little bit to keep his muscles being worked upon on the side. It worked, so good for him to do. Now, we walked behind it. It was like a scene out of a movie. Like, someone actually drops their wallet in front of us. And I'm about to bend over and pick it up, and he's like, he couldn't speak, so he makes noises and goes like, And he bends down and balances on his one leg, picks up the wallet, and just makes noises. So like, and she turns around and gives her the wallet. He wanted to do it himself because he could, even though he had all the right in the world to just sit down and or stand and wait and let someone else do it who had easier access. But for him, it was like, I can do this, so why shouldn't I? And that moment inspires me so much too, to see that. Just because you're limited doesn't mean you have to limit yourself.
No, you're right. Yeah. Wow. That's like kind of, I mean, I'm so used to like sometimes, hearing these made up inspirational stories on the internet, but like this stuff is real, right? You know what I mean? It kind of affects me differently, and like, yeah, that is inspiring.
It's so hard to believe some stuff out there because it's like, okay, it's believable, but did it actually happen? But in my case, it's like, I don't see a reason to make stuff up, and I got to grow up next to a legit angel of a man, like a person who, like, I remember the funeral. There was this guy who attended the funeral who cut his trees, like, you know, trim the trees a bit with branches. And they became friends because he came out to trim his trees, cut the branches, and my best friend was like, oh, so how do you do this? And this guy had been working with that business for like 30, 40 years, and he was like, ah, yeah, you do it like this. So he did some research and wanted to learn because he was like that. He would research what people like. So the next time you meet, he would have the other thing. So the guy comes back a few days later to continue this work, to which my best friend says, oh, by the way, I read you can do this that way, you can do this that way. And he said at the funeral, like, I was so, like, angry at this young guy who tells me how to do my job I've been doing for 30, 40 years. And then he thought about things we said, and he tried it out. He was like, dude, this is so much easier than the way I've been doing things. And they became friends, and that's the type of person he was. Like, some person is randomly coming out to just to fix the, make his trees better, and it ends up with them just becoming friends, and he even taught them something because he was just interested in people and their lives and what they do. And like, that's my best friend I grew up with. Like, that's inspiring as hell for me.
That's an amazing quality to have, like being interested in other people.
I forgot to tell
Like,
you.
Yeah,
good for them.
it's something.
And good for the
I'm
people
happy.
around them as well.
You tell
Like,
me.
Yeah,
it's incredible to have a person like that in your life.
What is it?
yeah. I feel so happy and enriched by actually having that in my life. So I know what you get from being interested in others, because it makes sense to me, the idea. By the way, Tinkerbot, thank you for mentioning the biography film. It's called The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, apparently, if you ever want to check the film out. With the French guy and this island. So, it makes sense to me where it can come from, being interested in talking about yourself, especially for someone who never got to. And suddenly someone wants to listen to them. It feels good to be listened to have a voice, to be heard.
I
But
won't bother you.
that also makes it easy
Alright.
sometimes to forget how good it can feel to hear a story and be enriched and maybe become a better, more compassionate and empathetic person just because you listened.
I didn't think my Friday would end up being like this. I thought we would be just, okay, here's the game. We're talking about the game. Bye, and not like getting into these intimate details. This is incredible.
Thank you.
But like, yeah, I totally agree.
I will say I've had moments where someone has also been like, okay, well, we were supposed to have like a short conversation about like what's meant to be done, but I personally have this habit of I don't have walls.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like sometimes it's Thorlar effect. Like, I will just like say stuff that to me makes sense to mention, and I feel honored that it's not taken as a like focus on the target in front of you, but actually something that feels good to someone to be part of. That I'm not just like losing the red ball, so to say.
No, I think it's a good thing. Like it gives me like this. I know that you're like personally involved in it, and that makes it feel so much better,
Thank
like
you.
like the fact that we go from talking about the game to you reminiscing about that time with your best friend, like that's so awesome, and I love that.
And for me, it also, the way I feel when I'm able to tell that is because it shows the people that makes it important for me to see these choices. So it also comes from the, like, it can seem like a small choice, like we talked about this here in the bottom right corner with the GOIM and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And then being able to explain what type of person benefit from that, I feel is so good for me to be able to show, because I feel for me, like, if someone understands who they're helping with that, it makes it so much more rewarding to know that your work did so much. It's not just that, oh, thank you, you made my life better, but like, you understand it and feel it when you hear those stories.
Well,
Yeah,
let's
it's
get
not
this
just,
over
a
with.
nameless person, but they have like a face and a shared experience that you can hear about. Yeah,
I won't
absolutely.
All right.
So
So-
thank you for the compliment.
Regarding this guy here, Taylor, we're here visiting him here just to grab some evening wear. So
Yeah.
you can pick the first option if you want. The
Yeah,
other stuff here that you can unlock is one of the side activities of the game.
Ah.
Yeah, so you can just talk to the tailor and pick the first option, and you pick up your tuxedo.
No, and then you can
Oh,
go
yeah.
here and actually change it around and stuff. Here's the customizability of the game.
Yeah, some of it, yeah. But you don't have any other options than the clothes you arrived in.
I mean,
At the
to
moment.
be fair, there could be an option to just walk around topless and just like, you know, pride.
I'm pretty sure there were some sort of like decency laws against walking topless back then. I'm not sure what the case is.
Probably. Can't sacrifice that for the gameplay.
The topless Victor gameplay. There is this one fan who seems to
Well,
be
let's get this
have a
over
huge crush on Victor. I think he would enjoy that a lot.
There's
Yeah.
gonna be a mod made by them where he's just topless and
Possibly,
like,
yeah.
goes.
Possibly.
It reminds me of that that song of Rasputin where he's like, yeah, Rasputin, but instead of that
Rasputin.
is Victor.
Yeah. Oh yeah. we loved that song while working on the game. We went through all the renditions,
some
you know.
living wear.
Went through the original
Proportions.
by Boney M. We went through
Alterations
the
won't take long.
the metal
Your name and
version by the
address, sir?
Finnish band
Victor
Turisas
Shulsky,
and all the other
9
ones as well.
Greensquare.
We did
I'll
all.
send a
We
messenger
went through
when
them
I'm
all,
done.
man. Like
And Mr.
I would
Shulsky,
say I'm so sick of the
if
song at
you
this
will
point, but
allow
I'm
me a
not. I
moment of
still love it.
candor.
It's
Some
just
are
I've
hard
heard
to
it
get
so
sick
much.
of.
Seems no one dares
Yeah,
to
it's
address
too
you with it.
catchy. It's too good. Like
Yeah.
disco never gets old.
Go and find
The funny
yourself
thing
a
to me is
barber
also
in
how that
Livorski.
song is just like
You
a
look
banger
like
of a
a
song, but you also
trumpeter.
have like its history. It actually
Now,
teaches you
I'd like to go to
something
my business.
about
Hmm.
a real
I won't bother
person.
you.
And
If you
some of
actually
the
read the
events around
lyrics.
their life. Yeah. Yes,
So-
Star Kitty. There's a metal version of that song, and it's done by a really great band. They're from Finland, and they're called
Yes.
Turisas. I'm not sure. You know, I hang on. I'll just log into Twitch maybe on my own account.
Or you could just link it to me and
Or I could
DM
link
if
it,
you
yeah,
want
that'd
to,
be
if that's
better.
easier. That's okay too. So let's see here. Is there another song? I'm trying to think if there's another historic song that is also like this. It's just so cool. Oh, actually, there's one song I love because it shows how like you can teach the weirdest thing. Like there's a song called "I'm My Own Grandpa."
What?
Yes, and it sings a song, and you're like, wait, what? That's a reaction, exactly. But then, when he starts singing, it's like, okay, this guy falls in love with a girl who is a widow. She has a daughter that's all grown up, like, so let's say the girl is 60 and the daughter is 30, 40 years old. Now his father falls in love with the daughter of that woman. And when they get married with the daughter, she becomes your stepmom. Because he's like,
I'm
you're
confused.
exactly. So you're confused, but as it goes, you learn that okay, so this daughter becomes
right.
your stepmom, and if you have a kid, this is where it gets confusing. It's not only your son, but it's the brother to your daughter, who is also your mother. So your own son is actually the brother of your mother, which also makes you the father of the mother of the brother, and you become your own grandpa.
Wow.
Yeah, like the song tells it so well. It's confusing, but when you go through the motions, it actually makes sense how you actually can be, according to family law, your own grandpa. It's the weirdest thing ever, and I recommend
Family
that
law
song.
where?
Yeah, it's like family law in terms of like there's a father, there's a mother, there's a
Yeah,
daughter.
but
there's
where?
a,
Like, is that an I don't know an
no, but more
Alabama
like the
thing
law
or
of
something?
like what defines the family tree. Like how would you define it?
Okay,
It goes
I guess.
downwards. But when you suddenly have that your father marries the daughter of someone you married, like how does that change the law of the family tree?
I don't think we should go there.
Yeah, we should. But like the idea of the thing is like it's so crazy that you can take a song and explain complex things in a catchy way that makes you go like, oh shit, I didn't understand that I could
Yeah.
learn so much from a song. So that was the point to get to.
Okay, we're back at Pavonsky. All right, we gotta
Yes.
go see the barber.
Hey, look, they drew some characters over here.
Yeah.
Are those
Kids.
pictures of the developers?
No, but I think there are some pictures of developers snuck into the game.
Oh,
if you're...
like paintings on walls and stuff?
No, I think photograph. I mean, you had photography at the time, right?
Ooh.
So if
nice.
you're, yeah, if you have a keen eye, maybe you'll find some.
Oh, look at this. Is this an actual, like, what it could look like back then, or what is this supposed to be?
This is what's called. Hang on, I need to Google the English name for that thing. In Polish, this thing is called a photoplasticon, and okay, in English that's just like the proper noun for it. In English, the general noun is a stereoscopic theater, and basically
Oh.
what it did is simulate like 3D, I guess, to a certain degree. It was like a pretty early invention. I recently saw one of them live, actually, at a museum. They had like old photos of Paris from the 1850s.
Yes, sir.
It's an incredible thing. And this is also one of the side activities in the game. So if you find one of these stereoscopic booths, you can go and find the spot where the photo was taken.
I feel a little bit like Abraham Lincoln.
I mean, knock yourself out, you know?
There you go. Now I
Yeah,
just need a
go
zombies
ahead.
to slay.
Oh,
There's a
yeah.
book and apparently a movie, Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, wait, yeah,
Zombie
where's the
Slayer.
Vampire Slayer? Right, I remember
Oh, Vampire,
now.
yeah. It's like, wait, what? I just love that. Like, you know what would make him cooler? There we go.
If he, you know,
usually touch
carved
dice.
ash stakes and, you know,
Do you like
rammed
it?
them into bloodsucker hearts, I know.
Also, I gotta say, I just love these things in when you can customize a character and you go in without a beard and mustache, and then you come out with a full-grown beard and mustache, and it's like, damn, that's a good barber.
Game logic. You can't beat it. I wish it worked like
Yeah,
that in the
suits
real
talent.
world. I'd love to, I don't know, try out some
Years of
haircuts, but
practice.
then
I know,
growing
right?
your hair out
Clients
is
are always
months.
satisfied.
So,
I have been to some hairstylists in Sweden where they actually can take a photo of you and then put it into their computer and then just apply, so very realistically and good looking with your hair color and everything, what you would look like with a certain hairstyle, a mustache and beard to go with it, so they can give you an idea, like, do you really want this haircut to go with you? Does it fit your, like, cheekbones?
that's
your...
really interesting, but I
Really
wonder if it accounts for like different hair textures and volume and stuff like that, you know, because you think
That's
you
a
might
good
think
question.
that, yeah, because like I have pretty dense hair, but it's fairly thin, so I don't get that as much volume as some people do,
Yeah.
and that you know, some haircuts would just not look as good compared to say reference photos, right? Because somebody else would have thicker individual hairs, right?
Yeah. It reminds
That's
me-
interesting. I wonder. Oh, another thing right here, while
Oh,
you're
yeah.
running past, the city will change depending on the hour you're out on the street. So right now it's late evening, so you have people hanging out, drinking, having supper and whatnot. So when you come back in the morning, likely all the chairs will be folded away, and then you know, all right, because that's where the mini map is.
Yeah, I figured I'd show there was a live moon showing that it's like late at evening or / nighttime.
Yeah, so if time progresses and you come back in the morning, you're going to find the place empty and then, you know, put away for the opening in the noon or afternoon. It all depends on the location because different like venues open at different times, right? A cafe won't be open late into the night, but a pub will.
That is such a nice detail to actually consider having that for the different types of times and establishments too.
Yeah,
isn't it?
we spent quite a lot of time on that. I was one of the people also doing that, and
Ooh.
that was a lot of work. Like it got tedious at some points, but I'm so happy we did that. It just adds so much to the city.
Honestly, small details sometimes it can it's like I sometimes like to stop and think. Like you might be looking at the sunset sometimes at a place, but then it's like you might forget to just give credit also to the person who just designed like where do you place the rocks on the ground to make this like grass in front of you more believable. That then makes the sunset over it look so good in the first place. Like what built the horizon that you're enjoying the sunset falling down under, and
Yeah.
that's why it may feel like you said, like it was tedious, but it's such a nice detail that really adds life to it. And even if you might not necessarily, as the average gamer, think about certain things, for those that notice a bit extra, they're gonna. And then even if you don't notice it, it's just blowing life into something and bringing it from a
Well, I don't know.
like a game to a experience, if that makes sense.
I see you went to a bar.
Yeah, no,
there.
I know what
That's
you mean,
something
and
at
yeah,
least.
I totally agree. Like
Recently I met a
the
good
moment like
guy who's
certain
not especially
details are
fussy about
noticed,
his
people
appearance.
appreciate them so much more. Like
And
even if they
yeah,
weren't aware of
we
them on a
promoted him
playthrough,
everywhere we
these
took him
details
on the
eventually often come up. Say,
Maybe he's a natural
you
climber.
always hear of like
I've
stuff
heard
being
that can
found
get you
years
injured and
later in
clear,
like
even
either a
without
Dark
tape
Souls
out.
game or a Witcher or an RDR or whatever.
Very
You always
true.
hear of the little
Are you
details
getting dressed
being
so we can
discovered, and
go,
people
or have
really
you changed your
appreciate
plans?
those. So, yeah, this goes out to all the people who love details. I love them too.
I'm gonna ruin details for all of you though. Let's see here. First Mario. What is and what is it called? Bush. There we go.
Oh, I know
So-
what you mean.
Yep. So for those that love details, you're gonna hate this. They use the same exact design for clouds and for bushes. They just recolored them and then placed them.
Yep, that's a smart allocation
Very
of
smart
time. You know?
solution. So it's really smart game design. But also when you start noticing the detail, it's like you're never gonna unsee it. And I love this myself, having the touching the programming a bunch myself, and also knowing the technical limitations of the past. This is such a smart way to really save, because they might even have just done like the cloud itself, but had a little bit of a filter, who knows, that just changed the color of it rather than having two different assets.
Yeah. But
So that
well,
saves a lot
basically,
of space.
it's all down to your technical like knowledge and skills, right?
Yeah.
The individual amount of optimization that you are able to like do or perform, or however you want to call it. So that's why it's really important to have somebody on board who's able to do these things and who has that knowledge. That you know, people don't often pay much attention to how games are optimized until they're optimized badly and you feel it as a user, right?
Mm. And
So
it's
yeah, shout
easy
out to all the people doing optimization.
Yeah,
on
and it's
every
so
game
easy
ever.
nowadays to have bad optimization not noticed, because computers are so strong. So, like, now it's even more easy to get away with bad optimization, but some do a terrible job. But before we continue with anything else, I also want to say Cormac RTV just rated us, a very lovely person, who I believe you actually, well, not you, but Cormac actually works with, like, don't you work with video games yourself now, Cormac? Like, at a company? I recall something like that. So, welcome in. We actually have one of the devs, indeed, Robert here, who is one of the level designers of the game. So, if you have any questions about the game that you were wondering, he may be able to answer most, if not all of them.
Yeah, I hope I will be able to.
Yeah,
Hi,
so
Cormac.
don't ask
Pleased to
questions
meet you.
like, does Victor actually have nipples on his player model? Because I don't think that's necessarily answerable. Like, he can't be topless, but does he still have them?
What, by this shirt here? I'm not sure, actually. That's a great question. I'm gonna forward it to the marketing team. They should be able to answer.
Yeah, honestly, that would be pretty good. I love this one.
It may be an option. I don't know. I mean, there's every so often I see people, or not even people, but like
Yes, let's go
when
and
out
see
on
if we
town,
do
I
fit in.
see
In that
video
case,
game
I'll go get
T-shirts and just
changed.
regular chain shops, you know, licensed. I saw so many like Cyberpunk and Witcher
you.
T-shirts
And here I worry
in the
I was
past, but that's,
only
you
one
know,
who looked
an
good in
enormous
trousers.
brand, so I'm not surprised.
Very
But
chic
I'll
choice.
answer, or rather, I'll ask that question. I hope I can get you an answer.
Dude, I love the answer you can do here. Say thank you and return the compliment, or just say you look better than she does. I love the pride choice. Also, Cormac actually asked you a question, like, how was it to work between, like, real world, like you've been explaining, like, studying how it was back in Warsaw back in the days and to make it accurate, but how did it also feel with the contrast of these, like, spirit world things with the Thaumaturge and the entities you can summon?
So I'll answer that in just 1 second. I'll
Of
type the
course.
question out.
We can switch places. I look better than you do, all in all.
That I
Nina
like to
Ellie.
see. You think Papa would be mad that we're going to a party
So,
after his funeral?
with regard to the jumps
I hope
between the
so.
real world and the spirit world,
Keep talking.
I
He could have
can't
kept
answer
freezing
that
for
one because I
Rak'N'Roll.
didn't work on it
Are we
personally.
ready?
Yes,
Yeah,
the
that was
carriage is
other
ready.
level designers working on that. I was doing something else at the time, but so I mean it wasn't there. Okay, I don't want to answer for those people, so I'll just leave it at that.
Welcome to
But
the
I liked
Imperial
that how they
Hotel.
managed to
How may
blend
I
and
help
fit it
you?
into the general style of the game.
Here on the
And where we
invitation
got
of
the
said
inspiration for the
Romancer.
art direction,
Yes, we are expecting you, of
it was a
course.
long
The,
process
soiree is
until we
taking
got to
place
this
in
point. Like
apartment
I wasn't
237,
responsible for the art
second
direction
floor.
myself, because you
I
know
wish
that's
you a
the job of an
thrilling
art
and
director.
successful evening.
Christopher, in our
I'm
case,
impressed. How
Christopher,
did you sort
thank you
that
so
out?
much for your art
Our
direction
names
on the
don't mean
Thaumaturge.
something. Let's do our
In
best
terms
to
of the
keep that
inspiration,
way.
I will get yelled at probably if I'm wrong, but I'm going to answer anyway. I I remember a time when we were trying to go for a more realistic style, but we ended up
Ooh.
going with a more stylized one because
Who are
we realized that in the perspective, in the isometric perspective of the game, certain stuff like human hands seems tiny in comparison to the rest of their body, to the point where you don't really see
Yes,
what's going on with someone's
of
hands.
course.
So that's when we realized that, okay, we may not
People are just waiting
actually
for
need
us
to stick
put
to
a
realism
foot
that
in
much.
just
Maybe we
think.
need to consider
We're walking
stylized
right
options.
back
And there was a
to the
bunch of brainstorming there. So there's a lot of different references that were used and a lot of different inspirations. One I remember a lot,
I'm going to
or
get
not,
up.
rather not a lot, but like I remember an image, and
On
I
the job
think
stage.
that may have been from Dishonored, like because if you think about Dishonored, it's also quite a stylized game, and it plays a lot with human proportions. So if you look at the Thaumaturge characters, they have ever so slightly modified body proportions as well. Like if you look at their hands, maybe not in isometric, but like in combat, their hands may seem too big for their bodies or something like that, right?
I didn't even
So
think about that, so I'll have to pay attention to that during the next fight. I also wanted to say, I also noticed the time is already 7 p.m. and I believe you also might have had like this is where you end your workday and stuff.
I guess I could stick around for a while longer.
Yeah, but
So
I also asked because I know that was like a time this I don't want to take too much of your time. I also haven't eaten for a bunch of hours. I
okay,
figured otherwise, if you felt like this was like you have had the chance to answer everything you want to and stuff, we can also wrap up already, so you don't have to spend most of your Friday
no,
evening with us.
it's been great spending time with you actually,
Thank
but
you.
yeah, I understand it completely. So guys, if you have any more questions, go on, shoot them in the chat. I hope I can answer, and then we can wrap it up, I guess.
Of course, and also if anyone has any other questions that you want to ask her other times, you can also ask, and I can forward it most likely, right?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah,
There
and
you
of
go.
course, Steam forums, right? When they get,
Yes.
I'm not sure if they're accessible right now, but we also have accounts on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook and LinkedIn too. Like you can always ask your questions and comments, and I'm sure our team will get back to you.
I suppose we can ask about, answer one last question also from Cormac there. How many hours, once again, remember you answered it earlier, but if you take your like time and don't get stuck, how much is one playthrough? Ish.
1 second. Yeah, I'm trying to get that info because I still haven't completed the game from start to finish in one sitting, in one save file. So I don't have that info firsthand. I'm gonna get that for you.
Thank you. And yeah, I also want to say a huge thank you for participating because I can understand also that as a developer or someone who works in studio, it can be hard to have the time to step out, especially so close to release, to give some time to a stream because that could, like, this meeting could have been an email, you know, like that type of vibe. Like, you could have been working on something you want to solve. So a huge thank you for taking the time for this. It's an honor to have had you and answer such exciting questions and having all these conversations with us. Thank you.
Yeah, and likewise. I mean, I always enjoy talking to people about the stuff we do and talking to fans. So I was very happy to be invited to be a part of this. And I can't get an answer right now. Hang on, somebody messaged me. All right, so depending on play style, it'll be around 20 hours if you don't complete everything. We're hoping to average about 20 to 30 hours. Of course, like I said, depending on play style. If you want to rush through the game, I'm sure you can make it much faster. But then again, if you want to take your time and explore the world, I'm sure you'd be around the ballpark of 30 hours, maybe more. So.
And that's just for one playthrough too, and since you have so many choices, you can make. I'm actually going to bring up the Thaumaturge. We didn't visit it too much during the gameplay, other than the beginning, that you can make so many choices on which path to take, and in general, in some fights, you might also take a different path where you use different characters or fighting styles for the different fights. So you can explore in so many different ways to how to approach the game.
Also, another thing is, maybe I won't get into too much detail about it, but if you look at the panel that's hiding behind my video feed right now.
You can move it down to the corner like that.
Yeah, please do.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, there it says available upgrades. You're able to deck out your actual Victor's attacks with specific upgrades, and you can switch them out anytime to change your play style.
Oh.
So, yeah, you'll be able to, you just drag it over here.
So I can drag it like that, and now it's on damage over time here. And also there.
Yeah, there you go. And if you attack somebody with that, yeah, it's going to give them what? The trait that you, the upgrade that you just socketed in there, right? So
if I put the strong attack here, I could do, like, I could reduce focus by 1 additional point if they're in the suffering state. So if I, for example, connect that with this, could that in other words mean that it takes
they will synergize? Yeah,
they will synergize.
Yeah.
That is such a cool and like rich way to alter your abilities and how you approach every single fight.
It gives you just that much more, you know, flexibility and freedom to tailor your combat style to how you like playing.
That is so cool.
So anything else I wanted to tell you about the game specifically that I haven't gotten to yet? I don't think so. I think we covered quite a lot of topics regarding the game, actually. So I don't have anything in specific. I will be playing it on release with you guys, as in, I also want to see, like, you know, finish the game from start to finish and get like the full weight of the entire story in one go. I can't wait to get that. But other than that, no. Nothing else. Okay. Did we get any more questions?
Yeah, do you have any last minute questions you guys would like to ask? Because otherwise, we will be wrapping
what
up
is my favorite part of level that I did? That is a great question, actually. And I gotta say, let me think now. It's either going to be the southern, or I don't know. Can you open the world map for me?
Yeah, of course.
Please do, because I want to get the name right.
So I think there you go. No,
yeah, there.
This is the
yeah. My favorite area, I would say, would be northern Śródmieście. So that's that's this one here, right here. Yeah, that's like the district in which Victor's house is located, and there's a bunch of other landmarks that still exist in Warsaw today. I really enjoyed putting that district together, and it has some really cool verticality there. Like it's just been the most fun to work on for me personally. And it's also one of the the prettier looking ones, not the, you know, the grimy, muddy, dangerous ones. It's one of those, you know, it's the downtown area of the city basically, so it has to be nice and showy, right? Did we get the layers of streets and such from real life maps? Yes, absolutely. We did work with maps. We worked with paint. That's another cool thing, that we worked not just with maps, but we worked with historical paintings. We worked with postcards and all other stuff. Like, I think some wood carvings or woodcuts, something like that from the period, just so we had, you know, authentic, you know, sources to draw from. Because a lot of this stuff is not there anymore. You know, the city was leveled practically in 1944. 85% of Warsaw was destroyed completely. So, the city you see in the game, it's not there anymore. It's been rebuilt, but it's different. And then you have those sketches, that Victor makes of everything in his notebook. Yeah, 3 days left.
That is
to
so
launch.
crazy that like we're literally visiting a place out of time in that sense, because it doesn't exist anymore, because you generally get the idea that you're visiting a place that has history, you could go here in real life, but this has all been destroyed.
Yeah, all of it is gone practically. Like the train station that Victor gets out of when you come to Warsaw, that thing no longer exists. It was huge. It was there for ages, but it's gone. It's been destroyed and
Damn.
disassembled during the war, rather. A new train station was built in a different spot. That place, I think, is like a park or like some sort of boulevard for pedestrians right now, if I recall correctly. I don't live in Warsaw, so my topography of the city is mainly actually based on working on this game. That's where I got most of my knowledge about the layout of the city. Even speaking of the modern Warsaw, like I still go by whatever we did for the game.
Very good. Like I'm very impressed with what you've accomplished, and once again, a huge thank you for joining the stream. And for those of you that missed it, like I said, this has been one of the level designers, Robert, who has joined us for the past few hours while we've been playing the game, which is coming out on Monday. And if you want to check the pricing out, you can wishlist it already on Steam. And they also have a Twitter, which you can, I think I still have the link that I can just share it once. There you go. If you want to check what it will cost, you can also type !Thaumaturge to read more. And once again, a huge thank you for joining us for this stream.
Thank you so much, Thorlar. Thank you so much, chat. It's been great playing with you. I hope you enjoyed the game, all of you. And
Yeah,
I
I've been
guess I'll
having a
see
real
you
good
in
time.
Warsaw.
Yes. Perfect.
All right.
Take
Have
care.
a great
and happy
evening,
Friday.
everybody. You too. Bye now.
Bye.